All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 14th celebrity typing live stream. Thank you to Isaac. Thank you to Pel Valkyrie for already making your super chats. And if anyone else would like to make a super chat, please send a $20 minimum super chat for me to type someone saying the name of who you'd like me to type. And I'll get on with typing those people as well. People who donate more, of course, will be prioritized after I've finished the last person. So if you want to be put ahead, you can make a super chat of a larger amount. But yes, okay. Let's start with Marvel's most unique artist, Bill Sienkiewicz. All right, here's Bill Sienkiewicz, American artist, known for his work in comic books, of course, particularly for Marvel Comics. So he was known for the New Mutants, okay, Moon Knight, Elektra. Oh, okay, okay, a little bit more alternative. His focus. Um, is considered revolutionary in mainstream US comics, uses highly stylized art, the version of abstraction, and made use of oil painting, photorealism, collage, and mimeograph. Other forms generally uncommon in the comic book. So this guy is a creative. He's a proper creative person. All right. Look at him. He looks creative. He looks very creative. By that I mean he hasn't showered. But yes. So his eclectic art style helped shed eclectic, there we go, shed the early perception of Moon Knight as a mere Batman clone. Yes, Moon Knight is a pretty eclectic superhero as far as they go. People don't know what Moonlight looks like because he's not the most well known. Just take a look at this person. Oh, there's now a television miniseries. Goodness, Moon Knight. Just yeah, it's 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 an interesting looking character and very much not Batman, not meant to be Batman. But yes, okay. So he has produced covers for a range of Marvel titles, Rom, Daz, the Mighty Thor. All right, let's take a look at some of his art then. Just gonna get that Polish surname right. There we go. Let's take a look. Let's see. Oh no, no, no. Let's do that. Let's see. Oh wow. So yeah, like this is not one's usual comic book look. It isn't. It's not a sort of matte coloration. It's yeah, it's a lot more artistic. Very, very interesting and very eye-catching. Hmm. All right. That gives you a feel of the guy. Let's see some of his quotes to start off with. I love about doing this stuff. One day I can work on this piece in watercolor, then work on something else on the computer, work on something else. It's a completely different approach. Completely different approach. There we go. That's the eclectic aspect of him. People you can pull in and take you on a journey as opposed to simply adding flash. Again, that feels very clinical. I don't respond to that the way I used to. Does not like clinical. Does not like clinical. Hmm Want to be complete because I figured that visually there was an avenue to explore. The extrovert intuitions are so obvious right off the bat. Um, what is Intron saying? Hi Jack, Ilya here. Can I cash in my first request? Yes, Ilya. Just so you know, Ilya booked an interview for someone else. They bailed on that, so I owe him five typing. So yes, Ilya, you can cash in on your first request when you want, and I'll get to you when I can. All right. But yeah, it will be done when you come up with something. Just take your time and come up with one. Okay. So what's being said here? After that, I jumped, especially being in art school, to the illustrators. There's still always avenue for smaller comics and personal expression. There's always some little area here we could go into and look into. Scrutiny is an honourable thing. It's pushing the envelope. It's the truth of something through exaggeration. God, if you look at the movie like that, or something like James Gray directed a film with minimal or pin lighting, opposed to everything being lit bright and flat, where everything is evident. No, he wants to find other ways of conveying how things might look to create a sense of mystery, perhaps. And that, to me, is the main attraction to comics, isn't the avenue to say what you want to say. If somebody can inspire me, it feels really special. That was a real learning element for me because the more true you are to yourself, the more you will lose people. As a real learning element for me. Interesting. So there's something here about being caught between being true to himself and then losing people. Now, what does that mean? I want to learn how to paint rather than just doing black and white work. Okay, comics are really my lifeblood in a lot of respects. Kind of an honorable thing. But why an honorable thing? That's interesting. I want to say 90% of stuff out there is just crap that got made. The main point is that it got produced. Okay, so there's some discernment there as well. I didn't want to feel constrained, so I took on the mutant. Didn't want to feel constrained. Didn't want to feel limited. For a while, I felt very alone, sort of out there in the world of comics, especially here in the States. There's a kind of symptom of pushing the boundaries, being very safe. Corporate stuff, there's a dichotomy there, depending on the creator. Even what in essence may be a very safe corporate approach, there is some stuff that is allowed to be pushed. A lot of my stuff now that I did, and some of it looks tame to me, but my interest in terms of what I want to say with it is a little different. It was made for the mind filled in what was missing. Okay, okay. So we've got this is quite an intellectual sort of painter. One with very clearly, I think, a leaning towards extrovert intuition, as far as I can see. Let's have a look at the guy and see what he says in an interview format. Bill Sienkiewicz's creative process. Ooh.
I would do pieces that felt like I can see the fact that I did them. And then there were pieces that I would do where I would finish it up and I go, that doesn't look like me. And that's the one thing I've learned about the work is that I can have all the ideas and plans about what I want it to look like. But when I'm actually in that moment and the work is telling me what it wants to be, I've had plenty of arguments with the work and I always end up losing. It's like because the work knows what it wants to be.
Interesting. The work knows, not me.
I couldn't pick a style. I feel like I don't have any like single approach.
Yep.
Trying to fit in or be familiar or decide a certain way to
I
do
mean,
things.
this guy's an
Not
IE,
looking at it
obviously.
as a negative.
Yep.
There's a line of creators and people doing something, and say you're at the end of the line. But if you turn around, you're the first person going in another direction.
Okay. I think I already think he's most likely an IE. I want to see if there's anything else though.
I want to talk about your work as an inker. You are an incredibly fine artist. Any way you look at it, you're probably, if you look at your credits in comics, you probably have 10 times as many inking credits as you do anything else. And you are an incredible inker, but when you ink an artist, you bring a bit of your aesthetic to it. In fact, I was just interviewing John Romita Jr. and I asked him, who would you like to have ink you? And sometimes like Bill's at the tops of my list. And I think he's done it once in my entire career because he does enhance and he brings some extra qualities.
I wish they would let me know that. Editors, are you paying attention, editors? I want to John.
But are there artists that you've approached over the years? You said no because our art doesn't match, or they don't want your aesthetic on top of their art. You ever had anything like that happen? Yeah, you don't have to name names.
Well, actually, the only kind of situation where I've had, like, if they come to me, it's literally like they know what they're going to get.
Yeah.
And that may include not knowing what they're going to get. You know, that I may zig when they expect me to zag. I'm a huge fan of John Paul Leon's work. I think he's absolutely amazing. And he wanted me to ink his work at one point. And I love his stuff so much. I was actually like incredibly faithful to the pencils. And he was like, no, he's like, you don't understand. I want you to like.
This is the
like,
Bill remix.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay, you know, I'll go in but I felt like it was blasphemy on my part. And of course, over the years, I've had, you know, there's a level of like people have said, well, why do you
so he's still got gunk on his hand.
There's a lot of things I want to say.
He's got papier-mâché on his hand.
I've found is that it's a little bit like walking in somebody else's shoes and seeing through somebody else's eyes.
Was it paint? It's probably white paint.
How people solve the solutions, and you can read a comic and see how they solve a solution, but when you're coming at it from a point of that level of line by line or interpretive you know, point of view, it's a really interesting sort of immersion. But I do remember when I was inking the great Jim Aparo, you know, God rest his soul, but he was just absolutely a stellar artist and in all manner. But at the end, DC was actually having me ink his stuff, doing finishes, because there's a certain thing that happens, and whether or not I'm trying to be, maybe if I'm speaking in generality, I'm obviously wrong. So, but you know, when artists get to a certain level, especially since comics tend to, you know, there's really no retirement in comics. You know, a lot of older guys, they've just got to turn out the stuff. And what happens with all of us is that the motor skills go, it's like the eyesight goes, and what drawings could be kind of wonky. And so, unfortunately, that's a little bit what was happening with Jim's stuff. So they came to me to fix and change and things like that, which I was totally fine with doing because I was such an admirer of Jim's work. And at one point, we actually had a great conversation. We spoke to each other on the phone, long conversation. We never actually met in person, but we had like a 2-hour conversation. And at the end of it, we were just about ready to hang up. And he said, "Oh, by the way," I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Do me a favor." He goes, "Could you stop effing with my faces?" And I was like, I said, "Got it. You got it." It was literally, and like that had been like the reason. Said, "Look, we want you to fix the faces." And his response was, you know, "I'm still cognizant enough to know that you're basically, it's like you're fixing my faces." But and I said, "You got it." So I actually went to the editor and I said, "Okay, I have to respect his opinion." You know, it's like I can't, in good conscience.
This is someone who's socially adaptive and also aesthetically adaptive.
Well, unfortunately, like not too long after that, passed away. But it was
and respectful through the relational front.
Come first.
I've seen some of your work on top of Dennis Town. It's one of my absolute favorites.
I wouldn't overstate the evidence from that, but
combo too. And the way you treat his artwork is like nobody else I've ever seen. Talk about working with Dennis.
Well, I think one, I've known Dennis since we were both puppies in this business, you know, and we always like best friends. I mean, we get along great, and we have similar like.
There is a relational aspect, basically.
Styles, and that a lot of that includes more of a European flair. And I think Dennis is big he's much more of a European talent. Yeah. And we also both think in terms of not so much in terms of anatomy and rendering in terms of form. We both think that abstraction and pattern and shape. So that's the big thing. Yeah. Everything else sort of fits into that wheelhouse. But other than that, it's like I literally, and it's presumptuous
non-structural.
To say this, but he'll send me something and I know what he wants. And we're lucky enough that we have kind of the shorthand, and his trust is implicit, and
very good at interpreting people through his knowledge of them and their relationships, rather than being things needing to be explicit.
And it's already brilliant, you know, from what he sent me. So yeah, but I love working with him.
Okay. Anything else? How did I learn to draw? Let's see that.
I draw when I was a kid. I think I did the thing that most kids do, you know, find the mother's, you know, lipstick and draw on the wall. I did that. It's like now it'd be like something that, doing that now. It's almost like, wow, that's so cutting edge. It's like a kid doing that stuff. Was the only cutting edge thing would be like to find out the new way for them to beat my ass about it. Oh, it's like we already whipped him. Let's see what can we do. We can take him, put him to bed without his supper. That's another cutting edge thing we could do. I think every kid draws, or is creative in some way. And I think what's interesting about when kids are drawing and painting is that they're in the moment. It's like they're just not trying to have it look like anything specific. They're just in that flow state. It's not until like later on that it becomes one of those situations where you get out of that. It's like you strive to get in that flow state. Everything is just like you're trying to shut out the noise. It wasn't until I went to kindergarten and we had to draw, and I know this is sort of politically incorrect now in terms of identity politics and nationalities, but we had to do an Eskimo, something to do with like the North Pole or frozen North. And so I did this figure standing in an anorak, with the fur collar and the big, any images I'd seen of sort of like Shackleton or any of that kind of stuff, that was in National Geographic. Because, when you're like 5 years old, it's like your access to the world. But for some reason, I had actually seen, some of it, or they might have even shown the kids like a little video or something. But I did the drawing of the I could still picture it in my head, and I wish I actually had it. It was a contour drawing in black crayon, and after I did it, all the kids they were coming up to me and they were like, how did you do that? And like I'm going, what are you talking about? Because I thought, again, every kid can draw. It was just so natural for me that I assumed it was across the board. And then when I realized that the other kids were showing me theirs, and they were not that great. I said, this is it. This is for me. But I remember, playing with my friends, and it's like, and there was this, this one. It's like a comedian who wants to play to the one person who isn't laughing. But there was this one gal, girl in school who was sort of very like bossy. One kid's father was a pilot, so the kid like had this air of I don't want to say even at that age a little air of entitlement, but it was like she was like all about him, and I'm like, I'm a farm kid, and I'm like, it's like almost a competition, and so I was looking for anything to get like a leg up in terms of it's not quite like Zuckerberg starting Facebook because Rooney Mara wants to break up with him at a bar because he's going to be a very successful asshole. But I think for me, art was it. It's like, and then I read comic strips, comic books. Superman was my guy. I still remember the death of Superman. And reading like in the car. Reading like that whole thing, that image.
Very good at
of
capturing
Superman
expression.
and all of his heroes are just sort of like filing past him, and it was just so totally amazing to get.
It captures expression. It captures character in a very non-structural way.
Every day, because my father also loved newspapers. My grandfather, it was almost like it was I spoke Polish. I understood Polish when I was a kid, but as I've gotten older, it's one of those things that I wish I'd kept up with. Like I no problem understanding it.
It's sort of unstructured now in how he narrates his life as well.
But comics and comic strips, what I loved about them was there was like Carrie Drake, Carrie Drake, who was a private eye, and then there was like Dondi, and then there was Charles Schultz, and then there was Smokey Stover, with like, and really goofy styles, very simple styles, and then this sort of very like illustrative style, like from the Mary Perkins on Stage by Leonard Starr, which was just amazing to me. So I remember I still remember my father would come home with the Daily News, and again I'm in kindergarten or first grade or something like that, and I remember cutting out the strips and putting them in a scrapbook, Neil Adams eventually became my default, like sort of the person I'm most identified with in terms of style. But when I was growing up, I was like a sponge. There was the comic strips and then the comic books, and I sort of didn't really see them as too different because they were both in narrative form, except that one was serialized on a daily basis, whereas comics was like, it was like binge watching like a daily. It's like, oh, I'm going to watch the whole month's episode, like all in one shot. Comics could do anything. It was like they'd be funny, they could be silly, they could be absurdist, and then they could also be
Wow.
really well developed characters, soap opera, and I was like, that's it for me. I just love this. So it was when I was 7. She told my father I was
Yeah,
going to draw
I think
comics.
so.
I just knew. Well, it's like that line.
Yeah, it does feel a bit like Louis Theroux in film. You're quite right.
Dr. Miller said that screenwriting chose him and didn't choose. It's like it really is that true. Like I just knew that I was going to be an artist.
So you can see that there's the strength and intuition is there, and also some stubbornness and intuition. Like he sets his own scopes of possibility. And that's to broaden things out, but he also knows he was going to be an artist.
I started to work at
Mm,
at doing Moon Knight as a backup for the Hulk magazine.
mm.
And at that time, my neighbor, a couple of farms down, her mom had passed away, and I'd known her. Her name was Frankie, and I had known her from grammar school. I had a dog named my dog named Skipper, and it was like my best friend because I like when I started getting into like fourth grade or whatever. I was also I loved playing guitar, I loved sports, and I loved acting as well. And and what happened was is that because of the family dynamic, I started to overeat, and I needed to wear glasses. And when my baby teeth came out, my teeth got there was a lot of crowding, and so I wanted to get braces. And my father did not believe in braces. So my teeth started coming in like louver doors. It was one more arena for me to sort of, or reason for me to isolate and kind of just go deeper and deeper into. So I'm this four-eyed, fat, buck-toothed, like pariah. I mean, I could joke and stuff like that and be funny and but it was like I withdrew even more. My dog was we used to let him out in the morning, and he would come home right before I went and got the school bus. And just one morning I let him out and he didn't come back. So when I came home that day, I was really because so unlike him. I walked off the bus. I walked in the house, and my mother's at the sink, and she's got her back to me, and she goes, "Skipper was shot. He's in his doghouse." And so I'm like freaking out. And I ran out to his doghouse because he would stay inside, and then during the day, my mom, would have him stay outside. And but he used to run free because it was the country, and it was way before leash laws and things like that. It was like people had dogs. Dogs used to just roam, and they became trained. Again, growing up in the farm on a farm community. I mean, I worked with cows. My father had we got pigs, except that my father got them to butcher, and they became pets. So I haven't had pork in years. But also kittens. I mean, I was a big animal nut. I just loved animals. But Skipper was like my best friend, especially when I started becoming overweight and everything else. He was sort of my best friend. And when I found out when he was killed, I didn't find out who had done it. He was shot, the shotgun. All through school, it's like it sort of became like this mystery, And so I'm in Marvel, working at Marvel, and I meet up with Frankie, and her father is who they used to raise German shepherds, and they always had Germans dogs around and stuff like that. And her mom passed away, so we knew each other from grammar school and then from high school. And she had been living with some guy up in Thunder Bay, Ontario, guy who was connected to the mob. this was actually when I started to run and everything, and just had my friends that I went go out drinking. I was like, I'm gonna start doing comics. Things are going great, and I was like get a girlfriend, and she and I like reconnected. We were friends, but we got married very quickly.
Mm.
And I think, like in retrospect, we ended up getting married to get away from our parents, to get away from New Jersey, and that's when we moved to Westport, Connecticut. Because one of my editors at Marvel lived in Westport, and he told me how much that was like the arts community. I mean, all the strip guys were there, like Kurt Swan, Stan Drake, Leonard Starr, all of my comic book and comic strip heroes, and plus comic book guys, Gil Kane. I was like, let's go. We're going, and we just packed up and
Yeah,
moved. And
I think so.
I remember the sort of
And
pushback
John,
from my family.
there is a
My father was like, "How dare you leave?" And I
there's
wouldn't get
introverted
away,
ethics there. It doesn't
And
fixate so much
but
on one person, but it's more like a number of different people who he sort of
young
is
kid,
enamored with.
alcohol
And at the
and
same time,
she goes
blending
through
that
that
with thinking about how he's being
some months
approved, how
later.
can he please others.
I
He also
went
wanted to break
deeper
free,
into a level of with my work. This is around the time when I was doing Moon Knight.
worrying about him being sort of fat and so, feeling like he's going to be mocked by others, sort of drawing.
I went to art school. I went to classes for watercolor and oil painting and stuff, and I kept.
But at the same time, counteracting that with quite a bit of humor.
I wanted to start trying to do some of the stuff that's in my sketchbook and put into comics. And my wife and her friends and stuff, like the other people who knew, the comics community and the art community, were like, that's not what comics are. And at that time, we had my friend Frank Anderson, who was a comic book artist, Terry Austin, one of the most amazing inkers, who became my upstairs neighbor,
Wow.
and Joe Chido, who was a painter. We had this little art colony um, in Westport, and for me, it was like I wanted to be, I just felt like the clone thing
Well,
was
so he always knows what he felt like. He knows what he felt like.
missing just in the electric.
Introvert ethics is very palpable there.
And even though I'd fallen in love with art, fine art, and music and film and David Lynch and all of these things,
But it's not stubborn.
into comics, and being told I couldn't. When I was finally told that you're just nothing but a clone, it just snapped. And I said, I'm either going to get out of comics or I'm going to do my own thing. And it was like the rubber had to hit the road. And I think it was partly because I was really unhappy in my marriage, and I mean, I think we're both unhappy. But she ended up having an affair with an artist.
Goodness.
And that sort of precipitated the divorce. And during the divorce proceedings, it turns out that like the coup de grace was that her father had been the one who killed my dog. So I kind of felt like,
Wow.
am I drawing comics or am I fucking living them? It just became this weird thing. And once the divorce happened, and it was so ugly. I paid alimony and everything, but I think it was toxic. And everybody that was in Westport, like Brandon, Joe, and Terry, it blew everything apart. So that art studio that I had with those guys and the art community, I was literally like all on my own. It became so toxic and divisive that I think that like guys wanted to be on my side, and she was like, you got to make choices, and whose friends do you want to be in there? Everybody's like, fuck this, I'm out. It was bizarre because I ended up paying like alimony for 3 years, even though she could work, but she knew how to game the system, and and like work with her attorney and everything. And it was sort of like, I think the state felt that why should she be awarded the state when this guy's making a good living? Let him pay for her. And then after I finished that, I went out, that my last payment. I never missed a payment. I remember the last payment. I
It's a bit caught up on that.
Myself at 9/11. So it was like, okay, this is for me.
Right. Okay. So we've typed Bill Sienkiewicz, I think IEE. I think everyone kind of agrees it's quite an obvious IEE. Let's move on now to Brad Arnold from Three Doors Down. Let's take a look. That's was Wikipedia. Hmm. Hmm. Goodness, didn't live very long. American singer, songwriter, musician, commander of rock band Three Doors Down, so the vocalist. So I find that Pale Valkyrie kind of like some of some of the singer songwriter people, rock band people. The band rose to prominence with the 2000 single Kryptonite, which Arnold wrote when he was 15 years old. Been active until his diagnosed with renal cancer. Ah, dear. Yeah, I explained the early death. Arnold was born in 1978 in Escataupa. I think that's how you pronounce it. Escataupa. Right, as a founding member of Three Doors Down, the band's lead singer and former drummer. Former drummer and lead singer. That's an interesting mix. Formed in 1996, the band's known for the hit songs Kryptonite, Here Without You, When I'm Gone. Hmm. Married his first wife. Divorced 6 years later. Was a Christian, came close to his faith after having gone rehabilitation for alcohol addiction. He preached his faith during concerts. He was injured in a car collision, so involved his wife, who was the driver of a car. They came up for consider hit some kind of water on the road. Car hydroplaned, went down on a high embankment, and they hit a tree. 35-40 stitches when his ears were sewn back. Goodness. Becoming alcoholic and stopped drinking in 2016. Diagnosed with the cancer. Helped redefine mainstream rock music, blending post-grunge accessibility with emotionally direct songwriting, lyrical themes that resonated with everyday listeners. Okay. Riddles down. A breakout single, Kryptonite. Hear About You When I'm Gone. Let's look at each of these. What's the song's meaning? See, like it's really just kind of like asking a question. This question is kind of a strange one. It's not just asking if I fall down, will you be there for me? Because it's easy to be there for someone when they're down. But it's not always easy to be there for somebody when they're doing good. And that's the question it's asking. It's like if I go crazy, will you still call me Superman? It's asking if I'm down, will you still be there for me? But at the same time, if I'm alive and well, you'll be there holding my hand. That's kind of asking. If I'm doing good, will you be there for me? Will you not be jealous of me? That's the basic question that song was asking. And maybe throughout the years of singing that song, might have come up with more meanings for it than it actually might have originally had. Interesting. So will you be with me through the thick and the thin? And also thinking, it's not just the thin. The thick also can cause people to feel jealousy and not be there for you. Here without you. It always has a meaning. It's good. Hang on, an interview with Arnold. There we go. Brown said that the main inspiration for the song was his ex-wife. Okay, an Iraq War anthem. And that's one of those songs. A lot of people can identify whether they're apart for hours or months while someone's away overseas. The story behind the songs in the interview. Songs about being away from someone, missing them. It really doesn't matter if you're here without them or for what, all day or a month. But the loneliness and kind of missing of somebody. But in a way, people take that as a little bit of a sad song. I kind of meant it as a happy song because it's talking about being here without you. But you're still with me in my dreams. And tonight, it's interesting. There's a sense of there's complexity there. It's not straightforward. This is how you're meant to feel. But it's more about the state of a relationship and what the other person feels inside. Tonight it's only you and me, so it's all really about that dream and being in a state of peace because you've got that person there with you in your sleep, and in that way I kind of meant it for it to be a little bit of a happy song, but people still think it's a sad song, which sounds to me like a bit of a failure in terms of extroverted ethics, assuming he is trying to do extroverted ethics, which I'm not so sure he is. Right. So, what else can we say? When I'm gone. Brad Arnold. And a few songs are written on the road, and when I'm gone is the only one we only hit we've written on the road. Todd Harrell said on the Three Doors Down. But I wrote the song thinking of unconditional love, when being removed from love won by miles or time or obstacles when I'm gone does not necessarily mean being gone permanently. It's asking a question. It's always asking a question. Always asking a question. Just please love me when I'm gone, and not like when I'm dead and gone, but when I'm going to come back. And that's kind of one thing it's about. At the same time, it's kind of about unconditional love. There's a lot of different statements asking of a person in that song. There's a lot of complexity, asking of questions, seeking some kind of assurance into the nature of a relationship across different circumstances. So, yeah, that's already quite interesting to me. It's uh, almost like grungy Taylor Swift to some degree. No, I don't know. Let's see. Let's see. Brad Arnold. I don't know. I shouldn't play the song. That always gets my stream taken off. So I'm not going to play the song. I'm going to have Brad Arnold. Maybe I'll play a little bit of the song. Just a little bit. Just a little teeny tiny bit and I'll stop. Okay, that's sort of a style. When I'm gone. Different style here.
Somewhere in this darkness, there's a light that I can't find. Well, maybe it's too far out.
Okay. And here without you.
It's a separate. Something out. Your face. I'm here without you, baby. But you still.
Okay. So before I lose ability to stream, I'll stop from there. Right. Brad Arnold. Let's look at an interview. Because he died very recently. Yeah.
I was in Japan one day and we were playing the show for the troops, and I could feel myself slipping away, that it wasn't me anymore. And I could also feel that this wasn't going to last a lot longer. And I FaceTimed Mr. Charlie, and he and his wife were sitting there on the couch, and I was sitting there just sobbing and just telling him how unhappy I was in my life. He said, son, he said, he said, if you love your wife and love God like you say you do, you need to come home and you need to go to rehab. I was willing for it and I was open to it. And I went in there like I was going to learn to learn something. There was a man that came in there to kind of hear your kind of talk and hear you pour your heart out. And he asked me, he said, Brad, he said, do you love God? I said, yes, sir, I love God. He said, why are you serving yourself? He said, you're not serving God with this. He said, you're serving yourself. It hit me hard. And he said, do you love your wife? I said, yes, sir. Of course I love my wife. He said, well, then why are you trying to kill her husband?
Welcome to Culture and Christianity. We're trying to sort out this interface between our faith and the world we live in so that we don't hide in our churches and quote scriptures and then live like the devil when we leave the building. So I'm excited today. My guest is Brad Arnold. Brad's a good Middle Tennessee guy now.
I am.
Started out in Mississippi.
Yes, sir. I'm from South Mississippi. I'm from down on the Mississippi Gulf Coast from a little town called Escataba. And grew up there. And I moved to Tennessee 17 years ago. I lived in Smyrna for a little while, and now I've lived here in Murfreesboro for the last 10 years, and I love it here.
Well, welcome to Culture and Christianity.
Thank you.
I have a habit when I have somebody that's a professional, and you are, I try to let them introduce themselves, tell our listeners what you do so I don't mangle it.
I'm Brad Arnold. I'm the lead singer for the rock band Three Doors Down, and I started the band when I was 15 years old. Me and a couple of buddies, and we just liked having fun. We basically started playing music together, you know, and music's always been a part of my life. I'm the youngest of 7 kids, and wow. I grew up in the Assembly of God church down in South Mississippi. So I didn't grow up in a shy household. It was never out of place to run around the house singing whatever song, you know, and always loved beating the drums as I started out our drummer, and I only became our singer because we didn't have a singer, and
I need that for a band, I guess.
You do. And for the entire time before we got signed, I was the drummer and the singer. And when we got signed,
it's funny because the drummer is not usually the front man.
That was quite the awkward experience.
It's odd for the drummer to be the front man.
Still took me. It took me a while, and it still sometimes I wonder what to do with my hands. But I've been blessed to be in this band for 30 years, and God has blessed us so much, and He has kept His hands around me when I was so foolish and done so many things that were just that I knew better than, and you know, because I'm not one of those people that can say that I didn't know any better, because I always knew better. You know, I come from a good family, and I'm so thankful for my family and my brothers and sisters and my mom and dad, and glad to be sitting here.
I can't believe you've been playing music that long.
It
goes by in a hurry, doesn't it?
It really, really does. I told a group of our first hit, Kryptonite. I wrote it when I was 16, and I'm 46 now. And I was singing to a crowd a couple of months ago, and I was like, well, y'all probably know this song, even though this song is probably about 10 years older than about everybody in this area. It does go by fast, though. But
you know, I'm old enough now. The groups I was listening to when I was a kid, they're still touring in wheelchairs, and they limp out. But so you got a lot of tread left on the tire.
Oh man, I feel like I do sometimes, and then sometimes I can get up on the stage and I run around and have fun. And when I walk down the steps, I'm like, man, my knees hurt so bad.
Well, I had a dear friend that I think had an impact in your life, Charlie Daniels.
Absolutely.
I did a podcast with Charlie once upon a time, it seems like now. But I think he really was a voice in your life.
There's a great deal of humility
a little bit about that?
to this man.
And I was so fortunate to get to meet Mr. Charlie, and I was so blessed. I got a chance to write with Mr. Charlie. I was trying to think of before I don't think he's a beater. That was that I actually wrote with him, and I want to say, if I had to guess, it was like 2005.
I don't think he's a Gamma.
I moved to Tennessee even, and
I'm leaning towards thinking he's a Delta.
Then that he was one of the
greatest. My gut is more EII, but I'm not sure yet,
because he's just
I'm not sure.
Mr. Charlie, you know, and time went by, and we've done different things together, and we kept in contact, and we played the volunteer jam a couple of times with him, which is a great thing. And to explain the impact that he had in my life, I have to acknowledge first that I was an alcoholic for. Now, I started drinking down in Mississippi when I was a teenager with all my friends, like teenagers do. And we got signed when I was 20 years old, and I stepped on a tour bus when I was 20 years old and started touring the world, and that's a lot.
Did you get your first deal with?
Universal Records, and we stayed with them the entirety of our career, and we don't technically have a record deal now, but it's kind of a different world now in the entertainment industry, you know. But they were always great company to work with, but it was just a lot to hand a 20-year-old, you know, and we done okay, but and you know there was no catastrophe in my life that pushed me to drinking so much. It was just kind of the lifestyle, and whether it just be nerves going on stage or just not being able to sleep in a bus, the lifestyle just led me further and further down the road before I realized that I was drinking pretty heavily, you know, and things in my life did like start to suffer from it substantially. And there became a point in my life that I could almost 95% of the problems I could point to that bottle, and that was the source. And my mom had prayed for me to quit. My brothers and sisters had prayed for me to quit because they seen the road I was going down, and
your family was Pentecostal, so they knew how to pray.
They sure did.
They didn't play polite prayers.
They sure did. And I have two brother-in-laws that are pastors.
Okay.
and so there was a lot of prayers being said for me, and I'm thankful for every one of them. But you know, finally, I was in Japan one day, and we were
He's a
playing
very
a show for the
open
troops.
person. Was he like this when he was
I was
younger?
just kind of having a night, but I could feel myself slipping away. That it wasn't me anymore, and I could also feel that this wasn't going to last a lot longer. And I tried to call a friend, and I tried to call a friend, and look for somebody, I guess, just to okay it or whatever, to validate my feelings, and I couldn't get anyone on the phone, and I FaceTimed Mr. Charlie, and he and his wife were sitting there on the couch, and it was late at night there, and it was about mid-morning, maybe here, or however the time worked out, you know, it was a big time difference, and I was sitting there just sobbing and just telling him how unhappy I was in my life, and he was a great counsel to me before this time. He always had great advice to tell me. He said, son, he said, you know, he said, if you love your wife and you love God like you say you do, you need to come home and you need to go to rehab. He said, there's a good place in North Nashville there, Cumberland Heights, and you need to come on back home and it's about getting in there. And I was like, well, I'll do that. And I would like to say that I got off the phone and was like, and called my wife and said, baby, I'm going to go to rehab. I called her. I was like, well, I'm going to rehab. I guess that makes you happy, you know, because, I mean, it was, but nonetheless, I came home and I went and I was ready for it. I was willing for it and I was open to it. And I went in there like I was going to learn something. And we were working the steps and all those things. And I honestly forgot what step it was, but there was a man that came in there to kind of hear your kind of talk and hear you pour your heart out. And he asked me, he said,
No, I don't think that's a lie.
God? I said, yes, sir, I love God. He said, why are you serving yourself? He said, you're not serving God with this. He said, you're serving yourself. It hit me hard. And he said, do you love your wife? I said, yes, sir, of course I love my wife. He said, well, then why are you trying to kill her husband? And it hit me between the eyes. And I that's been the 19th of this month.
Hits him in the relationships.
Years ago. And those 9 years have been the best years of my life. And we started coming to church here, and I think about 5 years ago. And your sermons have helped me tremendously.
There's a certain amount of sort of open, slight cringiness to him, which
with my faith
is what you tend to get with more Delta introverts. But
comfortable Christian that sits on a pew and goes out and lives how
I don't see much evidence of introverted sensing being a strength of his.
It's brought me to the best place I've ever been in my entire life. So thank you.
No, you're welcome. God changes lives.
Yes, sir.
He just uses us to help one another along the way.
Indeed.
You know, and Charlie, he'd taken a walk.
I don't think he's extroverted, vulnerable
in the place he wanted it to be.
Absolutely.
And Hazel, she came from
sort of cringy, but he knows how to express. He knows how to express himself, even though it leans very much to the deeply sincere.
You know, and like the Zach Williams song, right there in the broken pieces, there was Jesus. You know, I was listening to that song this morning while I was working out, and even when I didn't know it and couldn't see it, there was Jesus, and He was there through those times. And I realize now that all those times allowed me to be able to talk to people that otherwise might think before I ever said a word that there's no way He understands.
Right.
And I do understand, because I was there. And that's one of the reasons I listened to Mr. Charlie, because I knew that, you know, there was the '60s and '70s Mr. Charlie, and there was the Mr. Charlie that I knew, but I knew he knew what I was talking
I'm not
about.
sure Nestle would call a friend to seek out
I really
any
like
kind of
Charlie.
validation from them.
Charlie, I mean, most people associate him with country music, but Charlie just loved music. I mean, all genres.
Nestle would more like just hold it
category
on their own
which
a
made
lot
it
more.
up for him, I think, for a while professionally.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, music. How'd you get into it? And I won't make you talk about records the whole time. I promise. I'm gonna come back to your faith.
I never remember like not being into music. And I kind of listen to whatever my brothers and sisters listen to, and I'm the youngest of seven, and my oldest sister is probably 18 years older than me, and so we're kind of spread out, and
Kind of.
we are. But my middle sister probably had the most influence over me, and she listened to all the '80s rock, but she also listened to all the '80s Christian. So at the same time as we listened to like Bon Jovi and stuff, I grew up listening to Michael W. Smith and Petra and Stephen Curtis Chapman,
Phil Keaggy.
and I loved all those bands. And I think one of my first concerts I ever went to was Carmen with my church, and that was a great time.
That's fun. But you know, I have listened to some of your stuff. Now you.
In terms of cringy, is the focus is very much on sort of the pain in relationship, the asking of the question, will you be with me in this, will you be with me in that? There's a lot of vulnerability. And even like his journey to his journey to Jesus is also very much a great deal of sort of open sincerity and all the flaws and all the vulnerability. It's very wholesome, very wholesome. There's no packaging. There's no coming. This is not a guy who has any interest in coming across as cool remotely. He does not think about how to come across as cool. And the songs aren't very. If you look at this, even you see the images, you see like the photographs of relationships and him sort of sitting alone. It is sort of cringy. It's not cool. But that's not the point. He's deliberately. Honestly, he's not interested in looking cool. He's not interested in that. It is a super sincerity, which you find with introverted ethics, leading and mobilizing. It's very sweet. It is very exactly. It's very sweet. Exactly right.
Not only made a change, you've made a public declaration of faith. I mean, I've listened to several of the statements you've made on stage. I mean, talking about Jesus and your faith, and I mean, just being real. You've been more straightforward with your concert audience than a lot of pastors.
Well,
Thank you for that.
Yep, that's the super sincerity.
I am so
That's the super sincerity.
thankful to have the chance, and it's kind of well, it was a couple of years ago, and I was just kind of sitting in the quiet one night, and like you said, Saturday night in church, you said you heard a voice as clear as if someone was speaking to you. I heard Jesus say to me, He said, "Brad, I want you to tell them that I love them this summer."
Wow.
And I was like, okay. And shortly before that, I had learned not to question when Jesus said something, because I try to make this just as quick as I can.
We're good.
But I had a wet spot in my yard. It just kept getting wetter and wetter and wetter and wetter and wetter. It was out by my field lines. So I was like, well, field lines leaking or water lines leaking or something. So I had a plumber come over and
if you're a city person, that's the sewer system for his house. It was leaking in the yard.
Yes, sir.
Or he thought it was.
I thought it was, and all signs pointed it to either being that or the water supply line coming in. And so I hired a plumber, and he brought a backhoe over, and we started digging. And we dug 2 feet wide, 2 feet deep that way until it started getting dry. And so the other way, and it started getting dry. We're like, where is this water coming from? It's like, it's not the fill line, it's not the water supply. And I live pretty far off the road. My driveway is probably a third of a mile long. And I was seriously sitting there contemplating, am I going to put in a new water line out to this house? And so about a week before that, I had $150, I think, in my pocket. And I was somewhere, it might have been here at church, or I might have been down in Mississippi at my parents' church. And I just put the 100, God said, put it all in there. And I said, well, I might need that 50 for something later today, something I was going to do. And
he actually feels like he's actually talking to God as a person.
And this was a couple of weeks later that we were out here digging this fill line up, and I got up under my house.
There was an intuitive sense, almost not necessarily a voice, but an intuitive sense that this is a desire or will for him to do it.
So I don't have a fancy pool or anything. There's a little bitty house out there by it. It's got a little restroom in it, and I was in that house looking, and I said, I was at a loss. I said, God, please, help us figure this out, please. And because I don't think there's anything too mundane to ask God for help with. And he said,
yep.
Next time I tell you to do something, you going to do it? I said, yes. He said, go check the toilet, not my bathroom. And I went in there, and this toilet was leaking. We went, and it stopped. And that was where all that water had come from. So it taught me not to question when God told me to do something.
There's another thing, right? He's freaking out over practical matters. And through that relationship with God, there's this sense, almost an intuition that he needs to go and check the toilet, and he does it, and then it fixes. He was freaking out over the water, all the mundanity. It might be mundane. He doesn't mind that it's mundane. There's nothing too mundane. He values introverted sensation in him saying that there's nothing too mundane for God. That there's no sense of things need to be profound to be worthwhile talking to God about. But also the point is he's freaking out about a very practical matter. He's freaking out about that, and it's through that very deeply intuitive relationship to God, but it's almost like a person talking to him. For him, it's a person talking to him. He has to resolve his issues. That strikes me as the introverted intuition and the introverted ethics being in the stronger position, and the introverted sensing, and so especially the extroverted logic being in those weaker positions. I think EII makes a lot more sense than SLI.
So he told me that night, he said, Brad, I want you to tell him that I love him this summer. And I said, I absolutely will. I said, but I don't know how to go about it.
Let's see what it was like before this deeply religious experience. What was life like it when he was perhaps on the alcohol? Take a look.
Check that out, man. It's the first time we're seeing it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that's the reissued box set.
Oh, my God.
Look at that young face.
That he is.
I took a walk around, my double mind. I left my body somewhere in the same time. But I watched the world flow through the dark side of the moon. But I feel there's nothing I can do.
20 years, it's right here.
3 doors down.
I look at that record, and I actually just physically looking at those pictures on it, and I remember where we were standing. We took that set of pictures under the bridge.
Out of all of them, he looks the most. Out of all of them, he looks the most sort of young and boyish. Out of all the guys there.
Like we used to think about. I mean, this 20 years. You really think we could do this 20 years? I don't know, man. We could try.
The humility is very, very clear already. Even that point, do you really think we could do this 20 years? He's very humble, very humble.
But it has absolutely been 20 years of a curvy road. It's been a very blessed road.
Oh, thank you very much, Service.
You get kind of the same feeling, kind of lose a little bit of sleep over. It's pretty cool. My life changed 1,000%. Every aspect of it changed instantly.
Yeah, Holly, I'd say the point that each song was asking a question and exploring an area of ambiguity. I think that's also something which seems unusual to me for an SLI versus an EII.
somebody got something important from one of your songs. I mean, the songs all have meaning to me, and they all did when I wrote them. It seems like they mean even more than they mean to me to other people sometimes. There's always that song, that one song that you hear, you say, it's like, man, that song was written for me.
Yeah, these aren't public consumption songs. It's more about his personal connection to it.
That song helped me do something hard.
But he likes it when it happens. It just happens to connect to someone else as well.
So let's go back to hometown. How do you say the hometown's name?
Escataba.
Escataba, Mississippi.
Escataba.
And when people come to Escataba, are there venues in Escataba? Is there somewhere to play in Escataba or no?
They're not. But you know what? That very fact kind of worked to our advantage. There was nowhere there, and there was not a whole lot to do in our hometown. And when we started, there was 3 of us at first, but shortly thereafter, not too long after, Chris joined the band just a year or so later. And so we had 2 different age groups in our band. Matt and I were the same age, and Chris and Ty were the same age. And so we had 2 sets of friends, like completely different sets of friends that none of which had anything ever to really do on the weekends. And there was one little bar in town, and we started playing there pretty much every weekend. And you hear a band starting out, it's like, well, we had like 5 or 6 people at our first couple of gigs. And with all those friends being bored out of their minds, we instantly always had like 300 people at our shows. It was awesome.
Were they pretty supportive? Like, what was the hometown like to you guys as far as showing you support?
They really were. They supported us from the get-go. I remember our first gig, the band that Chris was in before he was in Three Doors Down, they played with us that night. And at the time, we knew 4 songs. We just played them over and over. I think we played them 3 or 4 times each. And everybody just had a good time. I mean, there weren't even any other like bands we were really competing against. It was like us and that band, and that was about it. That was it.
Talk about
That's just logic.
and let's just go way back to the beginning, where the inspiration came from, where you wrote it.
You know what? I was actually in high school algebra class in Central High School in Mississippi, and I was terrible at math, but I'd always just sit in that class and write. And
terrible at math. We sit in that class and write.
And
Creative,
singer because nobody else would sing.
reflective. Yeah.
And so I was sitting there, just kind of tapping on
He's
my desk.
very very open with his vulnerability. That is his source of creativity, his openness with his vulnerability. That super sincerity.
Song to band practice that day, and I sang them one time to Matt. I played it on the drums. I said, "Didn't think you can write something to that?" He's like, "I think so." He played ding 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 ding, and we played it together. And I remember Todd had just come in from work, and we were practicing in the little front living room of his trailer. And he stuck his head out of the bathroom, head full of shampoo. He said, "What is that?" I said, "That's a hit song. Hurry up, let me write it." In a perfect world, I'd always write lyrics first, but I'm thankful for these guys because the way that I hear that song with those lyrics in my head, it never winds up sounding like that in a finished product because it takes a band. I'm not a talented enough person to write a complete song by myself, nor do I think that even if I was talented enough to do it completely by myself, I know that it would turn out as well.
Humility. Very little emphasis on his own competence. Very little emphasis on his own competence.
To me was how I guess most of us found you guys for the first time. But what I didn't know until I spent some time with Brad was that the song was like a demo song. Like this whole song has a life before it actually had its big life. So you write the song. Where do you go and record it the first time?
At Holly House Recording in Biloxi, Mississippi. It was a pretty decent little studio that a fella had down there for a little while. And so I guess the recording of it maybe cost us a couple $1,000, and then we put all our money from gigs up and bought 1,000 CDs. And the testament to the power of radio.
Yeah, I think so.
Number 1. For the longest at number 1. Thank you, guys. We wrote the song like 4 years before it ever came out, but we recorded it on that little demo CD like 2.5, 3 years. So those first 1,000 CDs, there was a couple of record stores around there. I actually seen a sales slip from one the other day that somebody sent us. They last a little while, and we'd taken 10 more. That first 1,000 CDs lasted us 2 years. When our local radio station WCPR started playing the song, and then it became really successful on it, it was just like our last 100 CDs. It took us like 6 weeks to get more. The first 1,000 lasted 2 years. The second 1,000 lasted like 10 days.
Right.
And I was like, radio. That was from one radio station. I was like, there's the power of radio. It never came out anywhere else until after we got signed. Universal and Atlantic came down and talked to us, and we wound up signing with Universal, which I thought was a great move. They've always been great to us. We signed with them, and we didn't rush. Because we needed to write some songs. We wanted to use about half the songs off that demo, but we needed to write about half another record. And so they sent us, like, all right, y'all go home and write some more songs. And we spent maybe like two more months writing songs, right? Something like that.
Tonight hits #1, like we just said. It's #1 across the board. How do you celebrate?
We toured a lot. Yeah.
No, #1. Let's have a cake for 100 years, or
I got a tattoo, I think. Yeah, Ty got a tattoo.
See, it's not obvious. He does do the more of a talking. He does do more of a talking. But it's not like he doesn't make it obvious he is the person who speaks for everyone else. You remember some of the bands we had in EIE, the others almost do not speak. They just wait for him to speak. This guy looks to the other guy. He lets the other people interject. He's fine with that.
talk about your hometown, what it was like then, what's it like playing your hometown now?
It's a little bit different because we're facing the wall change.
And also another thing that's notable. There wasn't any sort of situation where like the band breaks up and the guy then goes and starts another band or keeps two different bands. There's none of that. It's he's built genuine close friendships with these people and sustained that for decades, which I think is another thing that's worth considering here. He didn't go off on his own and did his there's a deep sense of humility and I think a genuine stability and harmony in his relationships, which seems to be coming through here. There aren't that sort of big egos clashing element, at least with this sort of band. Plus, even named Three Doors Down, there is a sense of relatable mundanity to that. Okay, I think EII. I don't see another typing be likely. I think definitely an Delta introvert, as I think Pelvalky initially pointed out. Well, I actually forgot about that when I was going through it, and I came to the conclusion as well. So thank you very much for that. Let's move on now to Giles Brandreth. And yeah, if anyone else is watching, we've got 7 concurrent viewers. Anyone else wants to put in the super chat, please feel free to do so. Simply $20, and I will type whoever that is. $20. It could be £20. Could be whatever it is. But yeah, I will then type that person. So yes, please do so if you'd like me to type someone. All right, let's move on now to Giles Brandreth. And while I'm doing this, if Intreon, if Ilya, if you could please let me know who you'd like me to type for now, and does I have that person lined up, I'd be very appreciative. Right, Giles Brandreth. So I have a feeling this is going to be perhaps a more intellectual figure. Is this the right person? I don't know. Gilasbrandrath. There's only one Giles coming up, and it's Giles with a Y. So, Claudia, is this the Giles Brandreth you're talking about? Or is there another Giles Brandreth that you're talking about? Just want to check that's the right one. Yeah, well done, Pel Valkyrie. Yeah. Just want to check this is the correct. Yeah, that's him. Okay. Oh, it's a Conservative MP as well. That's interesting. Right, I'll go to this one. Right. Born 1948, British broadcaster, writer, and former politician. He's worked as a television presenter, theatre producer, journalist, author, and publisher. He's a presenter on Good Morning Britain. He's been regularly featured on Channel 4's game show Countdown and The One Show. He was elected an MP in 1992. He was a presenter and became an MP. That's interesting. Representing Chester in the House of Commons until his defeat in 1997 election. It's quite a short. Basically, it was one term. When resumed his career in media, he has written both fiction and non-fiction books. So why do you want to go into politics? Why take that kind of? Well, I guess it may have been less risky back in the 90s, but yeah. Born in Wuppertal, Germany, serving as a legal officer, as a pioneer in remedial teaching for dyslexic children. Okay. He read modern history, modern languages at Oxford. He directed the Oxford University Dramatic Society. So, directed the Dramatic Society, became an basically entertainer, and then, well, broadcaster, I should say, and then became a politician. So, very much an emphasis on, it sounds to be extroverted ethics from the initial impression. Appeared in the dictionary corner of the game show Countdown more than 300 times. Interesting. Than any other guest. Collection of jumpers, which were sold in a charity auction. Interesting. The podcast titled "Something Rhymes with Purple." It's quite that's quite sort of offbeat. Something rhymes with purple. Lexicographer, she's Susie Dent. Discuss aspects of English language as historic or unusual words and their origins, which is a popular phrase and say that's interesting. In the 70s, been written books for adults and children about Scrabble, words, puzzles, and jokes. It's quite cool. Wrote an author's biography of actor John Gielgud, lipogrammic reworks of Shakespeare. Considering what a word game consisting of writing paragraphs, longer works, a particular letter or group of letters avoided. Interesting. It's quite cool. 1980s, which scripts for Dear Ladies, is a television program featuring Hinge and Brackett. Hinge and Brackett, a British comedy and musical act consisting of two characters, Dr. Everdeen and Dame Hilda Brackett, devised and played by female impersonators. Dear Ladies. Okay. The stage show Zip, which enjoyed success at the Edinburgh Festival, has a short run in the West End. It's quite light. It's quite alternative, exploratory. He wrote his book on the marriage of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, a portrait of a marriage. Published a second book on the royal family, the 3-decade love affair between the then Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles. Oh my! In 2021, following the death of Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, he wrote, "The Duke showed me great friendliness over 40 years, but royalty offer you friendliness, not friendship, and you have to remember the difference." Brandreth has written a series of 7 works of historical fiction called Oscar Wilde Mysteries. So politics. Served as a Conservative MP. Have you eaten grammar about the English language and correct grammar? He likes words. He likes playing with words and meanings. That's interesting. Use a plain language bill to simplify language using contracts. So accessibility was very important to him. And thinking about it in terms of words again, but accessibility and the 10-minute rule. However, it was objected to at second reading and was dropped. The Parliament bill became law as the Marriage Act, allowing civil marriage to be solemnized in certain approved premises. It's interesting. Let's take a look at that, put it into a bit of context. So it could only be conducted in churches and register offices. Approved premises for the purpose of the Act include public available premises which are already identified as marriage venues for the dignity of marriage, do not have any official connection to any religion or religious institution. These approved premises are hotels, stately homes, restaurants, and leisure clubs. That also allows couples to marry in registration districts in which neither member of a couple resides. Okay, so basically it's freeing up where you can get married and you can get married now at a hotel as a result of that. Oh, I'm probably I am actually a beneficiary of this bill. Thank you for that. Thank you for that very much. That's why I was able to get married in a barn. Okay. Actually, not quite in the barn. I got married at a lake when we partied in the barn afterwards. But yes. Okay. That is quite a cool thing to introduce. He's appointed a junior ministerial office as a Lord Commissioner of the Treasury, his role being essentially that of a whip. He told spectators likely to vote Remain in 2016 European Union. In 1990, confirming he voted to Remain, accepting referendum results. He was now to get Brexit done. Okay. Giles and George Knitwear, known for the colourful, humorous, novelty jumpers he designed, has worn throughout his career. It's all that I'm really known for. I think he has to be an alpha. I think he has. I am leaning towards ILE. Could maybe be LII, but one of those. I'm leaning more towards ILE at this point in time. It's London to jumpers. We have one for almost every occasion. To name just a few examples: knitted jumper. There's a green frog. One for appointments with princes Philip and Charles. One sweaters featuring corgis and crowns. On a more serious note, he wore lounge suits rather than novelty jumpers when serving in Parliament. For he has stated, the first time I spoke in the House of Parliament, I heard John Prescott on the beach opposite me, muttering, "Woolly jumpers, ha ha ha." He could see I was thrown and he carried on. Eventually, I had to pause and point out to Mr. Prescott that the joy of a woolly jumper is that you can take it off at will, whereas the blight of a woolly mind is that you're lumbered with for life. He partnered American designer Jack Carlson to write a label 21st century with. Okay. Other activities, of course, he has other activity. A former European Monopoly champion, also honorary president of the Association for British Scrabble Players. Monopoly is not a game that favors an LII, just so you know. Just thought people should know that. It does not favor LIIs. You win in Monopoly by being very aggressive at the start of play, and that usually sets you up quite well for things later. And it is a very sort of capitalistic game. You can say it's meant to be. It's a satire of capitalism. To be fair, it's not actual capitalism, but yeah, it is a game you have to jump in very quickly and be very greedy. It's not a really a strategic game, to say the least. It's more well, the tactics involve where you can get people's properties quickly and even negotiate to get properties. Kiss Shell Baker on screen for 3 minutes, 33 seconds, longer than the record, longest on screen kiss. He's an after dinner speaker and held record for the longest continuous after dinner speech, 12 and a half hours, and the charity stunt. Okay, he has to be in it. I think he's most likely an ILE. You can see some ESC-ish elements and certain LII. I think ILE best covers that, but we'll need to see. Created Captivity, Funniest Man on Earth, Book of Words. He's almost polymathic. He's done a large number of different things. Let's see him in an interview. Actually, let's look at some quotes first. Playing games can contribute to making you happy, perhaps even without therapy. The purpose of small talk is not to be controversial, clever, or even interesting. It's simply to fill the silent void with a small gesture of common humanity, a spoken smile, a verbal handshake. I don't want to jeopardize the relationship with royalty by saying too much. Humorous quotation is a little window on the world that gives life a comic twist. I mean, I'm relatively pleased with myself and the world, but I don't assume that I'm liked. Prince Philip is very contrary. He challenges everything. Yep. I told Prince about having met them both. I was struck not by the differences between them and Charles, but by the similarities. A chap can go too far in the pursuit of authenticity. When I was a boy, I began writing a biography on Shakespeare, and since then I've written a number of biographies of actors and famous people. Shaking hands with all those wonderful people at the Stratford Literary Festival. They'll be shaking hands with the hand that shook the hand of Oscar Wilde. I know I'm hated, or rather people struggle with dislike for me. When it comes to personal communication, words are all we've got. It's a simple use of language that makes us human beings. I thought I would be Prime Minister. Really? People confuse being full of words with being terribly intelligent and informed. I suppose I'm instinctively flirtatious, but not exclusively to women. I want to be liked. Wants to be liked. There we go. I think that's the undertone in a lot of things we seem to have done. It exhausts and be giving one's all in the theatre. My first duty is to my paying public, of course. Contrary proper caricature of him, the Duke of Edward was neither judgmental nor unfeeling. I've been a print journalist, Sunday school play, editing magazine, standing at Conservative candidate for the 1959 mock election. He's wanted to be in politics for a long time. He likes being out there in front of people and receiving positive vibes. We love the line, I'm a luxury few can afford. It still makes me smile. It's a jumper for people with a sense of style and sense of humour. In the essence of democracy, you can kick people out. Yep. I was in the debating society at school. I was the president of Oxford Union, then became an MP in the 90s. Yep. I've learned you've got to accept the honors you got. There's a visible moat around the senior royals. If you're the Queen, you don't just say anything, you don't get into trouble. If you're the Duke of Edinburgh, you say a lot of things, sounds too many, and you do get into trouble. With a rowdy audience, the trick is not to go louder and try to beat them submission, it's to go quieter. As they get loud, you get soft. They then lean in towards you to listen. Yes. The biggest and loudest weddings don't always produce the happiest marriages. Right. Anything else we can see about him? The vegetarian, stop drinking alcohol to lose weight. Interesting names. Seyfried and Afra. Giles is also an interesting name, I guess. Bennett. I don't know how to pronounce his names. That tells you how a certain amount of intellectual pretentiousness that's been gone into his naming. Right. What did you do at Oxford again? Modern history and modern languages. Yes. Okay. Right. Oxford's Lord High, everything else. Yep, that makes sense. See, that's a reference to the Mikado. In the Mikado, you have the Lord High Executioner, and then you had the guy who was Lord High everything else. He just every other job he ended up doing. And to the point, Giles is someone who spreads himself very, very thin with lots of different things. So almost certainly an alpha extrovert just from that. So let's see what he's like in interview. But I'm very sure he's an alpha extrovert. Extra Tim Energizer. Right. Let's take a look.
It's about the European Union referendum. Nobody knows which way it is going to go, and nobody knows quite which way it should go. All we do know is that it will mean the end of the world.
We're inviting Armageddon then.
We are inviting, if we vote exit, apparently, everything will collapse.
Yeah.
Already, Barbara Windsor has committed suicide on in anticipation of Brexit. Our houses will be worthless. There will be a third world war. It's going to be appalling. So totally appalling.
He is a Remainer. He did vote Remain, but he's representing his point in the most exaggerated way possible for humor, thereby lightening the weight of his actual opinion.
If we say,
which is a classic alpha extrovert thing to do.
By 200 people a week. Most of them apparently from Turkey, but not delightful.
Yep.
I'm amazed you're not the spokesman for both sides.
I feel in a way that I am. I'm ready to be. Because the truth is, I know that we don't know. Because I have been there before.
Well, you've been a Tory MP.
Yes.
And you know they know nothing.
Can I say? The truth is, but the truth is, nobody knows anything. And I do remember 20 years ago or so, we went through all of this, and I was actually in the Treasury on the day that we came out of the ERM, standing at the back of the crowd with the present Prime Minister, Cameron. We were office juniors. And at the beginning of the day, there was this thing called the exchange rate mechanism. It was all part of joining the single currency. We were all in favour of it, or we were against it.
It's not the one show. You can use some bigger words.
He's like a straight right of centre Stephen Fry.
The point of the drawing is this. Yeah. The exchange rate mechanism, we're in it. We want to be in it. 20 years ago, we go into the office one day, and the markets seem to think we don't want to be in it. Well, as the day goes on, we find the markets are acting against us. We put up the interest rates from 9% to 10%, to 11% to 12%, to 13%, up to 50%. Nothing is happening. We're banging the top of the screen. The point is, at the beginning of the day, we didn't. Stand attention. What happens at the end of the day, Carl? What happens? The point is, at the beginning of the day, we didn't know what was going to happen. While it was happening, we didn't know what was happening. And when it had happened, we didn't know what had happened.
Right. Let's see.
Dominic, first of all, congratulations to you on making this event happen. And congratulations to all the members of the Society on it being such a buzzy, busy, committed, creative group of human beings. You may be under a misapprehension when you think that nobody can interrupt us. You think that just the people you've allowed to interrupt us can interrupt us. I say that only because I recently, in fact last week, took part in a pre-record of an episode of Just a Minute. This is a radio show that's been going for more than 50 years, and we're doing a new series now on Zoom. And we assume it would just be the people taking part in the program would be able to intervene. But halfway through, we realized that there was a maverick person pressing a buzzer, and somebody had managed to break into the system, so that it wasn't just me and Paul Merton and Sue Perkins trying to interrupt. There was somebody called Alan of Houston upon Lynn, whatever that may be, who kept coming in with his own. So anything could happen, which is why we're doing this live. I'm thrilled to be here. Let me introduce to you the person that we have really come to meet, your president, my friend, somebody who has done so much for giving us intelligent entertainment over many years. Can we salute Julian Furness? Julian, welcome.
Okay,
It's very nice of you. Welcome.
He's interviewing someone else
tonight.
Okay, let's go to one where he is being interviewed. Ah, there we go.
Now, sometimes we have a guest on the show and I have to explain who they are or why we're talking to them. But this is a man who needs no introduction, partly because I listed all the things he'd ever done. That would take up the entire amount of time we've got to have a chat. So I shall merely say I'm joined by Giles Bradford. Giles, welcome to Times Radio.
Can I say it's good to be back on Times Radio? I love Times Radio. I love you, Matt. The last time we met, I think, was at the Cheltenham Literature Festival.
It was at the Cheltenham Literature Festival, and you were about to go on stage and in front of a delighted audience.
Well, I went on stage anyway. There were a lot of people there. And I would love you to tell my wife what I do, because she keeps saying, what are you doing? What are you doing now? Matt Chorley, Times Radio, on a day like this, weather like this. Is this madness? Is anyone listening? You know?
Yes, of course. It's two. Everyone's taking
No discernment.
Of course. So, John, we'll come on to the many projects and things that you've got on the go at the moment. But let's go. What did you, as a child, as a young boy, a young Giles Bradford, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be, when I was very small, Well, my mother wanted to put me on the stage, but I wanted, from even an early age, I wanted to be Prime Minister.
Mm.
And there will be people listening to this who rather wish that I was Prime Minister. As you know, I did give it a go. Back in the 1990s, I was a Member of Parliament. Yes, as we say, those of us who've been rejected, I was a Member of Parliament until the people spoke. Then we say something rather rude about the people. But it was a fascinating time. So when I was a child, I think I was full of ambition. I had lovely parents who I think made me feel that I was the most special person in the world, and which was lovely, which is lovely. But it gives you a sense of entitlement that's quite dangerous, I discovered as the years went by. And I've been thinking about this only because during lockdown, I wrote a childhood memoir, which which is just out in paperback. And it made me think about my family and my parents in a way I'd never done before, because my view of life was look up, look out. I'd written a biography of Duke of Edinburgh, Philip the Final Portrait, and his line was, don't talk about yourself, nobody's interested. Look up, look out, that's the world out there. Don't be introspective. And I'm quite sympathetic to that. So when I sat down to write this childhood memoir, I thought it would be quite fun, a trip down memory lane. And it was fun at times, but quite a lot of it was a bit difficult. And one of the things I realized that was my parents loving me so much and thinking and telling me I could do everything and anything, that I believed it. I mean, the first time I went for a swimming lesson and stepped out onto the water, to find that I sank was quite a shock to my system. I generally thought probably I could walk on water. And my mother saw me as a kind of future Fred Astaire. And of course, I've got feet like Fred Flintstone. I've been asked to be on Strictly, but I've said no. Because I know it would just be an embarrassment. Who wants to be out on week one? Too humiliating. So I realized quite quickly as the years went by that I couldn't do everything or anything. But I've enjoyed trying to do lots of different things. And that's because I was sent away to a boarding school when I was 7 or 8 or 9. And I thought at the time, briefly, I thought, don't my parents like me? Why are they sending me to boarding school? I've since discovered from my sisters, I have 3 older sisters, that the reason I was sent away to boarding school was my parents couldn't stand the fact I wouldn't stop talking.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you.
Got together. My sisters said to my parents, look, we will chip in our pocket money to help pay for the school fees. We've got to have some peace around the place. So I was sent away to this boarding school in Kent. There was a marvellous headmaster called Mr. Stocks. And when I was 8 or 9, Mr. Stocks said to me, Grandgrowth, remember, busy people are happy people. 5 words. Busy people are happy people. And I think those 5 words that I was introduced to all those years ago by that head teacher have been, the reason that I've led the sort of life I have led, being a busy person. And my wife would say, busy fool. I say, busy people are happy people. So that's why I do lots of different things. And the advantage of that was, during lockdown, for example, when certain doors closed, there were other doors that I could push open. So I wrote the book, the childhood memoir, Old Boy Out, and I finished my biography of Prince Philip during lockdown, because the stage show I was due to do there, I was about to open a stage show with Judi Dench that actually opens this Sunday, on this very Sunday, that runs on till the 3rd of July, but it's all sold out, so I don't know really why I'm mentioning it, except I was going to do it 2 years ago.
Just to tease,
Just to tease
listeners who
and
can't.
it's a show where we explore her extraordinary story. It's called, I remember it well, extraordinary about her life. But we're going to do that 2 years ago. That was put on hold. My own tour was put on hold. Television could only be done by Zoom, etc. But I was lucky enough, because I write books, to be able to do that. So I like doing lots of different things, is the answer.
Is there anything that you've tried to do which you thought you'd be really good at and were disappointed to find that you either didn't like or weren't particularly good at?
I don't think I've ever not liked anything, because I'm lucky enough to be brought up with a positive approach, give everything a go. I've not succeeded in certain things. I mean, as a Member of Parliament, I was only there for 5 years. The people spoke, they got rid of me. My line, I sometimes say, is at the end of 5 years, I knew I had contempt from my constituents, but it came as a bit of a shock to the system to find the feeling was entirely mutual. The truth is, I didn't go for my constituents, and I do still go back to my own constituency, which is Chester, the city of Chester, because I'm the Chancellor of the university there. But I didn't pursue my political career because I didn't want to be in opposition. One of the things I discovered when I was in Parliament is that government is the thing. That's what's interesting. That's what's exciting. That's what's rewarding. And my lot would be out for quite a while, so I didn't go back there. So that, in a sense, it was fascinating while I did it. I really loved doing it, but it came to an end. I don't think I'm any good as a businessman. I've had various. I mean, the reason I'm comfortably off is that I like work. I'm a busy bee in the sense I keep working. I say I keep working because I need the money, because I've got 3 children, and I've discovered over the years that money is the one thing keeping me in touch with them. But the truth is, I keep working because I've found, as Noel Card once said, that work is more fun than fun, on the whole. And most of the things I do are fun, even though they're work. You know, I do a bit of radio, a bit of television, I write a book. These are fun things to do. I mean, it's not like real work. What you and I do, Matt, isn't work. It really is.
No, exactly right. Exactly. And yeah, whenever anyone sort of complain, oh, I'm tired, so we're not down the mines here. We are having, you know, it could be long and tiring and all that, but it's fun, and people, you know, bringing joy to people. Hopefully, at least anyway, at least
it's a.
And what about? And so, because we keep drifting back to this period when you're MP. 30 years ago this year, you became an MP. 25 years ago this year, you ceased to be, and it wasn't entirely your fault.
You're right.
Let's
blame my wife. My wife put our house in the constituency up for sale during the election campaign. I mean, that did not help. On every other house on the street, it said, vote Brandreth, vote Brandreth, vote Brandreth. On our house, it said, for sale. Now, the truth is, I was swept out on the tide.
Yes, in 1997. I don't think whatever you did to the good people of Chester, I suspect that the political times may have.
That's the difficulty of politics.
But, for example, in my part of the world, the Northwest, I was a whip, a government whip, which is the most fascinating thing to be. And I know you very kindly have read my diary of my time in the whip's office called Breaking the Code. It was fascinating. But I looked at the swing in that part of the world. And one of my fellow MPs from up there was a man called David Hunt, who is now Lord Hunt of the Wirral.
Oh no, it does that when I move my head, and it sort of, yeah.
Really good.
I think it draws attention.
Was exactly the same as the swing against somebody else in that part of the world, who I won't name, they're no longer alive, but who had problems, marital problems, financial problems, and could not keep their eye on the ball, let alone on the problems of their constituents. It seemed to make no difference that this fairly nice, well-meaning MP, who was really past it and is now passed on, got as much a swing against him as this superb MP in David Hunt. So there is no justice. I think they say that maybe it's 1,000 or 2 votes and it is the personal vote. But if it's the tide is against you, the tide is against you.
I just wonder, because being an observer of this from the inside, you know, back then the Prime Minister had taken over from a female Conservative Prime Minister. There were then lots of arguments about Europe, mired in sleaze after a long period in government. I wonder if you could see any similarities to what's going on in
None whatsoever. Because the example you give is that it was John Major who took over from the female Prime Minister. And when life was fraught and there was indeed a terrible recession looming, and he then won the general election. But of course, I know exactly what you're saying. And in a way, of course, you know, what is interesting is that there is a kind of.
I'll go to him next. Thanks, Ilya.
I mean, if you are, as I am, fascinated by it, have been ever since I was a little boy. I remember 1957. I remember the Suez Crisis. I remember the resignation of Anthony Eden. I remember vividly the Profumo affair, partly because my dad and my book, in a sense, is a book about my old boy. Given Father's Day is on Sunday, thinking about my dad. My dad, among many other things, he was a solicitor, and one of the people he was looking after was John Profumo. And John Profumo was Jack Profumo, the man who caused the Profumo crisis that some people say, you know, certainly contributed to the downfall of the Macmillan government in 1963. So all that is very vivid to me. But I think one of the things that being older gives you is a sense of perspective, and that everybody is human, even the present politicians. I'm really thinking of my father, who was a successful listener, but I now realised, I hadn't realised it before, had money worries all his life. Not because, I mean, he was middle class and had good income, and yet spent slightly more each year than he was bringing in. Not a large amount, he wasn't extravagant. He smoked a great deal, which is why he died at the age of only 71. But he spent a little bit too much money each year. And my abiding picture of him, and I often think of him now when I go to sleep, sitting just because when I went to bed as a boy, I remember walking past the kitchen and seeing him sitting at the kitchen table with a mug of tea, smoking his cigarettes, with around him all the bills. And I now realize, which I didn't think I realized as a child, that he was trying to work out which bills to pay first. He was organizing, trying to keep on top of his finances. And so I have such sympathy for people who have money worries. And I also, I would actually have sympathy with everybody, because everybody has worries of one sort or another in their life, except possibly for me, because I seem to be very blessed in so many ways.
And just on the current political state, when Boris Johnson, I can't remember what the particular issue was, but a few months ago, he rallied Tory MPs round to try and bring them together, boost morale. And who does he turn to cheer up the troops? The forces sweetheart, Giles Brown, just comes and does a ton, and you were the one who got a standing
ovation. It was a memorable night, actually, and I learned something very interesting that evening. Yeah, you're right. To remind listeners who don't follow the small print on this, a couple of months ago, the Prime Minister decided to have a dinner in Westminster for all his government and all the MPs, and they're looking for an after-dinner speaker, and it fell to me to fulfil that role, and it was good because I was seeing a lot of old friends again. But what was very intriguing to me was to realise the problem that the government has had, and indeed the Labour Party has had for the last 2 years. MPs weren't there, and they were literally working from home. They were debating on Zoom. They were voting remotely. Now, if you read my diaries, if you've been a member of Parliament, you will know that when times are normal, the MPs are there all the time. And in my day, they were there really all the time. I was there when they still had all-night sittings. And as a whip, I'd go there at 8 in the morning and they're still at midnight. I lived it. It was a village in which you lived. And you gathered around the watering holes, the tea room, the restaurants, the bars, and you knew one another. And you understood one another. You knew where each other was coming from. And if you had a problem with any member of the government as a backbencher, all you had to do was wait till the voting, and everyone went through the lobbies, and every vote takes 20 minutes or so, and you're in the lobby. You can go up. Any member of Parliament can speak to any member of the government. If you don't like what Priti Patel is doing, you go up privately to her, and you say in the lobby, look, this isn't going to work. I mean, this is why. Now, what happened for 2 years is the new intake from 2019, they didn't meet the ministers, and the ministers didn't meet the troops. And I discovered on that evening, my God, these are people who I like, and who should be liking one another, and would be liking one another, but many of them literally don't know one another. And there were MPs that night were saying to me, oh, who's that over there? I think I know him, I've seen him, and they didn't know one another. And actually the Labour Party would have had the same problem. If Keir Starmer has faced challenges with people not really understanding what he's about or what he's trying to do, and his troops, it's exactly the same thing. So I am extremely sympathetic to politicians, and this working from home thing just doesn't work if you want to make cabinet government and parliamentary government really work.
True.
The whole strength of our system, and it is uniquely strong, is that you have constituency MPs who really do understand what's happening in their patch. All the parties are good at this. All the MPs I know do surgeries. They do actually meet the people. They know what's going on the ground. And then they can relay that to the government. And that has not been happening properly.
So it's interesting. It sounds like you think beyond, because people sort of say socially they don't know each other, but
That's where you see a valuing of introverted sensation there, but also a clear confidence in his extroverted logic in being able to figure out what's not working here in the mechanism.
It's not. I mean, it's not somebody sort of sitting around thinking, I'm going to do this, we're going to solve this problem this way. It's actually people influencing one another, literally by the mood, the tone of the voice, the raised eyebrow. It's that way of understanding people. And that's why I love being in the whip's office. The caricature is, that if they're not voting your way, you lock them in the laboratory so they can't vote at all. Or you say you'll never get your knighthood if you don't vote with us. Well, I mean, that is crude and a caricature. What you have to do
Is
well,
it,
it's not
is it
true.
completely
It's not
untrue?
I mean, in the sense, no, it's not untrue. It'd be disappointing if, you and your wife aren't going to the Royal Garden Party this year. That sort of.
No, I don't think. He must value extroverted ethics. He must.
Understand what the person is about. Because if somebody, for example, if a backbench member of Parliament has a drink problem or a financial problem or a relationship problem, that will impact on their thinking. And a sympathetic and a thoughtful whip will understand that and will know what's going on. That's what I loved about politics. It's a people business, and it's very difficult. I mean, things that have changed in my day. Not only Parliament sits for fewer hours, they're not so close. But the 24-hour news cycle has now become truly oppressive, and any divergence from the party line, is jumped on. You're so, rebel. And yet, on the other side, if everyone sends out the same tweet, I see, they've all been given the toe of the party line. You cannot win. So I'm very sympathetic to politicians. I think we're jolly lovely. I say this, I've got a daughter, Afra. I've got 2 daughters and a son, and they're all incredibly brilliant people because we know who their mother is. Of that we can be certain. And my daughter, Afra, has been
He is very risque jokes.
I think to myself, my God, we need people of my daughter's generation, young, intelligent women like her to do it. And we mustn't make it such a grim life that none of them want to do it.
If you had still been there in the big committee room, the open panels committee room last week, would you have voted
I always have been a team player. I mean, I just know that that's the way to win things.
Yeah.
Not just in politics, but in life. Sometimes I've written a book about the Duke of Edinburgh, the late Duke of Edinburgh, and who was completely above, really way above party politics. Didn't interest him at all or appeal to him. But he was very into sport and games and the value of team play. And I learned from him that unless you play as a team, your team will not win. And the truth is, you've got to play as a team and you've got to back the captain. So that would always be my instinct, come what may. And I'm somebody who has been, was involved as a Conservative. When Sir Alec Douglas, I first, as a school candidate, my wife says, no development in your life, Charles, none whatsoever. You were stand at school when Sir Alec Douglas Hume was Alec Douglas Hume, you stood up with a little blue rosette on, bless your heart, you backed Sir Alec Douglas Hume. And then you backed Ted Heath. I mean, what about? Then you backed Margaret Thatcher. I mean, make up your mind, man. And I did make up my mind each time. I was going to, as it were, have a straight bat, be a positive thinker. I see the glass half full. And that's the way it's been for me.
Yeah. It's actually on Times Radio in conversation.
No,
with
he
Charles
has to be an alpha extrovert.
Another project from Giles Brandon. It's a podcast, and he's
The only alternative ILE could be is ESC.
He's a member of the royal family. We'll find out who next. This is Matt Chorley on Times Radio, still talking to Giles Brandreth, former Conservative MP, enthusiast, poetry enthusiast.
Let's see when he was younger.
Podcaster. And Giles, we've already talked a bit about your.
His maiden speech. Oh, here, Oxford student. Let's take a look at this.
I think we'll win in the end. Giles Brandreth, you been finishing your finals today.
Yes, only a few hours ago.
And you also took the journey all the way to London.
Trip to London, went to the Hog, and who may well be Home Secretary. The only sinister part of the election, I think, in terms of the Tory victory, is the fact of the great support that obviously has been shown for Enoch Powell and the effect that he has had. And this is slightly going to tarnish the Tory victory if it has in any way occurred, certainly among young people anyway, but in any way been caused by Enoch and his recent sort of McCarthyite speech.
There seems to be an apathy amongst the 18 to 21-year-old voters, the new voters.
This
I found this in Oxford.
Certainly, this is so. And the sad thing is that the people at Oxford or different universities, the ones who possibly are better educated, possibly should have a more sophisticated approach to it, haven't at all, and have approached it with the same attitude, looking at the people rather than the policies, and just sort of approaching it in a fairly sheep-like way.
Well, Charlie said.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, thank you for allowing me this opportunity of making what is known as a maiden speech. We've been to Cambridge and to Bath already among the maiden speeches this afternoon. Now we reach another beautiful English city in Chester. I have some reservations about the phrase maiden speech because it does have an unfortunately sexist ring to it. And as a rule, I don't like sexist language, though I have begun to have some reservations about politically correct linguistics since the honourable member for Newham North West told me of the Christmas pantomime in his constituency, which for reasons of political correctness was retitled Snow Green and the Seven Persons of Restricted Growth. We new members, Mr. Deputy Speaker, are very anxious on these occasions and these early days to do the right thing. As they all say, and it is true, it is very much like arriving at a new school, Westminster High, the political academy for students of somewhat mixed abilities, where there doesn't appear to be a formal prospectus, but where happily the Right Honourable Member for Shropshire North has published an admirable guide to the culture of the place, and the Honourable Member for Aldershot has published an equally fascinating guide to the subculture. Unfortunately, the doorkeepers and the police are always on hand to point one in the right direction. I've not yet found my way to either the hairdressers or the rifle range, but doubtless my friend, the Honourable Member for Derbyshire South, will sort me out in due course. Sitting in the right place is clearly also vitally important, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And on the day of Madam Speaker's memorable election, I found myself innocently drawn to the spot immediately behind the Prime Minister. Instinctively drawn there, I now realise, by an assumption that it was the correct place for the member for the City of Chester, because that is exactly where my predecessor, Sir Peter Moddison, was wont to sit when he served the present Prime Minister's illustrious predecessor so ably and so loyally. Loyalty is very much a word that one associates with Sir Peter, a true gentleman who served his Prime Minister, his party, his constituents and his country with unswerving loyalty and energy and commitment during his nearly 20 years in this house. And now that he has moved on to fresh fields and oil rigs new, I'm sure members of both
oil rigs
join me in wishing well for the future. I've no doubt that Sir Peter will be keeping a discreet eye on my endeavours here, as will his distinguished predecessor, Sir Jack Temple, and indeed his predecessor, Sir Basil Neild, a member of Parliament.
Now he's just showing off what he knows. He's just showing off what he knows.
A member of Parliament who pioneered what became the 1950 Adoption Act, transforming for better the lives of thousands of families throughout this country. And on the day when we are invited to enter the ballot for private members' bills, a timely reminder to us newcomers of what a backbencher can achieve. I understand that it is customary on these occasions to extol the virtues of one's constituency. Now, for some members, this may be something of a challenge because while the beauties and brilliance of Bradford or Brent or Bootle are very real, they are not necessarily as well known as they might be. For the fortunate members of the City of Chester, it is different. The virtues of Chester are already celebrated. Our city has been likened to the Conservative Party, as modern as tomorrow with a lot of time for yesterday. We combine the new with excellent communications that are going to be even better when we get the electrification of the railway from True to Holyhead. Superb indeed, what I'm hoping to discover. Superb business parks, the very best in British retailing. We combine the new with the old. Unique walled city, a matchless heritage, a great cathedral now celebrating its 900th anniversary. Chester has justly been described as the jewel in the crown of the Northwest. It is, in fact, a pearl in the oyster of England. And if you've not yet been, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Whitsun Recess and the best hotels and guest houses in the land are waiting to welcome you. In Chester, we have everything, including the Duke of Westminster, which is not a public house, it is a constituent, and one with decided views on certain elements of immigration speech, views that are well worth listening. I have found that all my constituents have views that are worth listening to. They are articulate and they are concerned. They're particularly concerned about the issues at the heart of this debate: local government, education, and the environment. My constituents, particularly those fortunately elected last Thursday, are concerned that local government reforms don't erode local government accountability. They have especially charged me with attempting to unravel the impenetrable formula by which the standard spending assessment is arrived at, and to explore why it is that a city like Chester, with its special responsibilities towards our national heritage and its ever-growing contribution towards our national tourist industry, appears to be treated perhaps less fairly than it might. My constituents, all of them, are concerned about education. They welcome LMS.
Right. Let's see if we can find. Doesn't mean to speak. Let's see if we can find anything else. This is the longest kiss. Right. Well, we don't need to see that. I can maybe see a little bit of it.
Watching the girl on Valentine's Day, will recall that I attempted on that occasion with Anne Diamond to make our way into the Guinness Book of Records by breaking the record for the longest held screen kiss. Unfortunately, we were unable to achieve the record because Good Morning Britain is very much news orientated, and quite rightly, we had to go over to Moscow for live coverage of President Brezhnev's funeral. So it may well be that today's attempt also will be interrupted by the news, because here, of course, news comes first. But nonetheless, we are a caring, sharing station, and the person who's, I hope, going to care and share with me this morning is one of the loveliest people in Europe today, that talented singer, actress, dancer, diseuse, Cheryl Baker. How are you, Cheryl?
I'm fine. Actually, I've had a runny nose, so... Big top lip to catch it as it drips.
So, in the course of science and with a great sense of fun.
Cheryl, just before we start, because you're not going to get much time to talk to us for 3 minutes or so, how much did we pay you for this?
Not enough.
We are being sponsored for charity, so there is a good cause as well as the chance in a moment or two. We'll be in the Guinness Book of Records.
All right, then, Giles, haven't you? I suppose I've got
a stopwatch. This is it, darling.
3 minutes and 5 seconds we're going for it.
Yeah, and redolent with
3
boy.
minutes and 6 seconds to break the record.
Right.
Okay.
You prepared?
Here we go. This is it.
Go.
What a break!
Okay, I can't watch that. Right. Okay. Let's see. With 7 secrets of happiness. Wonderful. Let's take a look at that.
Hello, my name is Giles Brandon, and I'm the author of The 7 Secrets of Happiness. One of the secrets of happiness is to cultivate a passion. Be anything you like. It could be flower arranging, it could be swimming, it could be horses, anything you want. Be a leaf on a tree means being part of a community, being part of a family, or a school, or a college, or a church, or a place of work. Break the mirror. Forget narcissism. Stop looking at yourself. Don't turn your whole life into one long selfie where you're photographing yourself. Remember that nobody is interested in you. So we've got to accept the changes in the world. We may not want to rock the boat, but a little gentle rocking is good for us. Happy people live 7.5 to 10 years longer than happy people. To be happy, you should never pretend it's holiday. You should live in the moment. Give the key up. Oh. Smell the coffee, taste the fruit. Live now. So this book of mine, The Seven Secrets of Happiness, can I tell you, it won't just enhance your life, it will extend your life.
Hmm. What else can we see? See what other stuff he's done on TV. Let's do something in 1980.
Cozy, colourful, and
His
comforting.
Rosebud podcast and YouTube interviews John Major.
Giles Brandreth's legendary collection goes.
Oh, I should see that.
Spring might have sprung, but the chances are that you've not cast aside your jumpers here in the UK anytime soon.
No, the broadcaster Giles Brandreth loves a snazzy sweater, whatever the weather, and his jumpers have become so well loved that they're the focus of a new exhibition. Lindsay Kinghorn went to have a look.
He's the king of the cardi, the sultan of sweaters, and his knowledge of knitwear knows no bounds. But where did his passion for pullovers begin?
52 years ago, I founded the National Scrabble Championships, and at the final, somebody turned up, the Scrabble player, with this jumper, bright yellow with a Scrabble board on it, and the words Giles Brandreth loves Scrabble. The Brandreth is not spelled correctly, but that doesn't matter, because as with the great carpet designers of the Middle East, they deliberately make a mistake in any of their carpets, because only the Almighty can create something perfect. So it's slightly imperfect, but people noticed it. And it made me think, this is back in the early 1970s, gosh, you get noticed when you're wearing a colourful piece of knitwear. So I thought, I better wear these jumpers. So I began wearing novelty knitwear.
Why didn't the lemon bag not work?
Because you didn't do it properly. The idea with the lemon is you've got to really suck.
In the 1990s, he replaced pullovers with politics and swapped sweaters for suits.
When I arrived in the House of Parliament, I put on my grey suit. I wanted to forget the jumper days, I wanted to be a serious MP, but almost the first time I got up to speak, John Prescott on the opposition front bench recognised me and knew I was the jumper man and began barricading, going, woolly jumper, on he went. I struggled on with my speech, but he kept going, woolly jumper. Then she had to pause and point out to him that the joy of a woolly jumper is that you could take it on at will, whereas the blight of a woolly mind is that you're numbered with it for life. I've raided the basement, I've pulled the jumpers out of the mothballs. During the pandemic, somebody tweeted me saying, desperate times call for desperate measures. They want to see those jumpers again. So I went down, began doing poems every day in a different sweater, and they became popular once more. I wandered lonely as a cloud.
Although his jumpers are well known through television and online, it's well for us to actually show them in a museum exhibition. Because it's such a wide-ranging collection, the exhibition is actually in two parts. So we've got spring and summer up until the beginning of September, and then from September to December it's our autumn-winter.
It's World Poetry Day, and I'm going to share with you my favourite limerick. It goes like this. There was a young man from Peru whose limericks stopped at line 2.
That was Lizzie Kinghorn.
Got everything, that report.
It's brilliant. I remember Brandreth on one of the Jubilee days turning up, and he was on the breakfast set ready to do an interview, and he was wearing a beautiful purple jumper with a big corgi on it.
That's all we need.
Great. But we want to hear from you. What colourful...
See, I'm trying to find... I know people say it's the death knell for anything being other than ILE, but I really want to rule out ESC. I want to find something that rules out ESC. I haven't yet found it.
Giles, you've been touring your one-man show. How was it?
Well, it was fun in its own way, a bit exhausting. And at the beginning, I was inviting people, because that became a 2-hour show, I thought maybe people should be allowed to ask questions, you know? And so Act 2 began with questions. And then it was on the Isle of Wight that I was doing this vintner. I did the show, questions, and a lady at the back of the hall had her hand up, and I said, Madam, what is the question you wish to ask? And she said, well, you've told us a lot of silly stories, which you clearly seem to think are amusing. But you haven't mentioned fish once. Fish? I'm sorry. So you haven't mentioned fish once. I came here to discover how to debone a trout, and I've learnt nothing. And it turned out she thought I was Rick Stein.
All right, well done. Well done indeed, Giles.
What's a dictionary corner? What is that about?
Boy, those French, they have a different word for everything, said Steve Martin. More famously, I think George Bush once said, the trouble with the French is they don't have a word for entrepreneur. That features in the new edition of the Oxford Dictionary of Humorous Quotations under unintended humor.
Let's try that. Ah.
On Thursday, we'll bring you what's known as the 10-minute rule. This procedure allows a member to introduce a bill and speak about it for 10 minutes. The same amount of time is then permitted for anyone who wishes to oppose it. Although these bills almost never are enacted, the process allows members to discuss issues of concern. This specific 10-minute rule deals with the language used in some commercial contracts.
Yes, this one was not successful.
I have no problem with the technology, Madam Speaker, nor with the amplification. I beg to move that leave be given to bring in a bill to secure improvements to the language and layout of certain contracts. Language, Madam Speaker, is what distinguishes the human race. It is the characteristic that sets us apart, that makes us unique. As an ardent animal lover, Madam Speaker, even I have to acknowledge that however eloquently a dog may bark, he cannot tell you that his parents were poor but honest. Language makes us unique, and in this country, we are born with the privilege of having as our parent tongue a unique language. English, the richest language in the history of humanity. Our language is rich precisely because it isn't pure. Emerson called it the sea which receives tributaries from every region under heaven. It's the language of Chaucer, and the King James Bible, of Keats and Joyce, of Anthony Trollope and Anthony Burgess. It has taken 2,000 years, Madam Speaker, to reach this far. And where is it now in 1992? Let me show you, Madam Speaker, let me show you by quoting from the terms of sale offered by the excellent builders merchants, Jewson Limited. If, and to the extent that any person by whom the seller has been supplied with the goods supplied hereunder, hereinafter referred to as the supplier, validly excludes, tricks, or limits his liability to the seller in respect of the said goods or any loss or damage arising in connection therewith, the liability of the seller to the buyer in respect of the said goods or of any loss or damage arising in connection therewith shall be correspondingly excluded, restricted, or limited. There you have it, Madam Speaker, the English language today. And that was just 5 lines out of over 100 similar lines that feature on the back of the Jewson's delivery note. When the driver drops off the breeze blocks and says, sign here, Gov, what I just read out to you is 5% of what you are agreeing to. Whether you like it or not, whether you understand it or not. Now, Madam Speaker, does it matter? Yes, I believe it does, because it can't be good that people regularly sign contracts that they don't understand, and indeed are not meant to understand. This is quite...
Was that Dennis Skinner? I bet that was Dennis Skinner.
but the rest of it's in plain English, so you'll be hoping at home. Costly mistakes can be made. A constituent of mine discovered this when he signed an incomprehensible contract to lease a photocopier. When he wanted to change the copier, he found himself faced with the option of a so-called settlement charge of some £10,000, which was 3 times the value of the original equipment, or the prospect of leasing that equipment, whose lifetime, according to the manufacturer, was 3 years, for a total of 7 years. Now, none of this was clear from the contract, whose wording was deliberately obfuscatory and arcane. Translation will come later. This plain language bill, Madam Speaker, is designed to encourage the use of clear, plain language in commercial contracts and prevent the unscrupulous or the arrogant or the incompetent from hiding behind legalese, jargon, gobbledygook, or small print. The Act would apply to consumer contracts, consumer credit contracts. Think of the confusion that we'd all be spared if we understood small print that comes with our access cards, and housing contracts. And the plain language that I have in mind is not so much the language of Shakespeare as the language of
Well, here we are. John Major, born 29th of March 1943. Sir John, I'm here to ask you our very first question, which is simply, what is your very first memory?
Well, I know that's typically your first question, and I've been giving that a lot of thought. The trouble is, at the age of 10, you rather get muddled about the sequence in which things happened. But I think that my very first memory is my sister teaching me to play cricket, age 2, in our tiny, tiny front garden in Worcester Park, where we lived in a small bungalow. And I have a clear memory, and there's a photograph of a tiny me holding a little bat, and my sister bowling to me underarm.
So this is going to be more about, far more about John Major than
How many of there were you in this family?
Well, there were 4. There was one child that was born and died before.
The history doesn't just admit that. Look at that.
About a month ago, I was in Scotland and I fell over my big fat feet and landed, and I broke my humerus. Not funny. But I have to tell you, if you are going to break an arm, have you ever broken a limb?
Never.
It is very painful, really painful.
Sorry to hear
But
that.
if you are and you're going to break a limb, do it in Anstruther. Which is where because within 3 minutes, the ambulance was there.
Excellent job.
2 extraordinary young women who were the paramedics. They could see I was in genuine pain. Gas and air. Oh, I am now ready to have a baby. Positive people, and my wife and I learned a lot on the 50-minute ride. See, and if you've got names to drop, why not drop it?
Try. Ooh. Oh, that's James Hill talking to Giles Brandreth. This is this one. Anything more from 1970, I think. Oh, he's actually on here. Okay, let's see this.
Is a bird, an immensely gifted bird. I promised you a sailor's hornpipe. You will not be disappointed. All right? It needs to be given a note. I know she goes immensely fast with me, but please, we would like you to give us your sailor's hornpipe, okay? Would you please give him the right note to start on?
Wait a minute. Give me a bit of silence.
Didn't like the note. Give him
That's my only note.
I'll give him the right note. What's Bali?
Giles. It's a stuffed toy. Giles, what's
It's a
this?
sailor's hornpipe. No poetry. They're saying it's a stuffed toy. No poetry, no imagination. Here we are.
I'm interested to know, Giles, what's it like on this planet where you live?
It's very nice, living in a slight world of make believe, because these creatures they answer back, but you still don't really understand what they say. I love it. It's called
Viewers,
Fruity.
viewers, if you could send some money just to help Giles, something that we can find a little place where he can be himself, because goodness knows we're going to need to do that soon. Send your donations, please, to TVAM.
Giles Brandreth Fund.
Yes, it's just something. Help him.
Actually, do this. It's not a bad idea there in its own way. Please feel free to
stuffed
subscribe.
toys.
All right, well,
Children.
look, it's nearly 8:45. We have to take a break, class.
What else can we look at?
Oh, TVAM. How was the party? Brilliant. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think, Eiley, I'm niggled that I haven't found something which absolutely rules out ESE. See what else I can find. I am niggled. Now, why did you do something rhymes with purple? Look at the first. It's the final episode.
Hello, I'm Giles Brandreth, and with me is my friend
Susie Dent.
Susie. What do you actually do?
On Countdown, the show that I appear on in Britain, I am known as a lexicographer. I just like to say that I am a logophile.
I would say I'm a wordaholic or a verbivore. We are doing a podcast. It's all about words and language, and it's called Something Rhymes with Purple, because something does rhyme with purple, doesn't it, Susie?
Yes, that is the old dialect word herple, admittedly not on the tongue every day, but to herple, spelled with an I, is to limp, to walk with a limp.
This is a podcast where we celebrate language. We just do amazing things, and we have episodes about swearing. Fuck it, we do. American English, oh yes. We go into spelling, dialect, euphemism, word games. It's about improving your word power, why words matter, learning the origins of words, having fun along the way. So press subscribe now to make sure you don't miss an episode of Something Rhymes with Purple with Susie Dent and Giles Brandreth. What a double act.
That's a good question. Why is that one called Rosebud? So, okay, here we go. Here we go.
Giles Brandreth is back on her schemes to...
This part.
I'm so lucky to know all these brilliant, brilliant dads. And you'll be meeting more of them after the interval. When I first encountered them, oh my. Well, actually, I remember it well. We met at 9.
We met at 8.
I was on time.
No, you were late.
Ah, yes, I remember it well. We dined with friends.
We dined alone.
A tenor sang.
A baritone.
Ah, yes, I remember it well. That dazzling April moon.
There was none that night. And
Hmm. Giles Brand of TV, AM Survivor, Teddy Bear enthusiast, former patron of lesbians for a conservative victory. To be involved in is a ladies' man. Men, I suspect, don't warm to him because he personas all they fear, turning into a fruity, risible, name-dropping, middle-brow dilettante. I did because he listens and has a glorious knack of making you feel as though your presence is the greatest gift ever bestowed upon him. What prevents that coming across as utterly confected is that the one thing he loves more than charming people is being charmed himself. He says he's instinctively flirtatious, says the founder of the National Scrabble Championships. Most used to be to women. I want to be liked, and now I can't say. He balks ecstatically. My rule is to never be interviewed by a paper you don't read. We are genuinely only here because there was something about your voice that was very charming. Man's notoriety stems from wearing comedy jumpers. Oh, a career more remarkable its breadth and depth. He's imprinted himself on an often unwilling national consciousness. He's written for every national newspaper, was in Honey, Women and the TV Times, was a theatrical producer for many years. His first British Pantomime Association, published novels and diaries, as well as more than 70 books for children. That's the thing, I do wonder. After launch over lunch, he sits in stammer and polish. The control freak isn't evidence. Editing his words, he speaks them. Contemplating my anger, gets terribly distressed. He thinks you've heard one of his stories before. In raconteur mode, finger wagging, eyes wide, brows beetling, resembles an amalgam of Alice in Wonderland characters. Though he says he's quite comfortable saying anything to anybody. He asked William Hague if he was gay and was the first to probe Charles Kennedy about his drinking. Says that he mostly likes the people he's interviewing. I only really tend to do real achievers. He's also met his subject at least once before, but then he's met a lot of people. He's a collector. His improbable web of connections spans the worlds of royalty, theatre, publishing, and politics. Surrounded by the best people. It's like I should say, I'm hoping some of the magic will rub off, but their achievements will add affirmation to me. He doesn't know who, how, or why he does it. But it began with Charles de Gaulle, whom he met at the age of 9 when the French president visited his school. De Gaulle so tall, Giles so wee, that the statesman failed to notice the people in the lineup because Brandon never knowingly misses an opportunity. This non-encounter remains a milestone in his celebrity lexicon. Introduction to his collected interviews, he writes of his lifelong fixation with the famous. For more than 40 years now, relentlessly, I've been pursuing brief encounters with the great and the good. He goes on to advance his rules about what constitutes a genuine celebrity encounter. Fleeting meetings in public places don't count. Physical contact is important, and remember, not all famous people are remarkable. But how much of it is simply the frisson of being seen to be on the inside? Oh yes, totally, completely. 20 years ago, I was in the States about to appear on some chat show to promote the Big Book of Jokes. He's come through the Pope has died, John Paul I, the one who lasted 21 days, and they said, we're going to have to cancel your slot. It's not appropriate. I said, you'll regret this. I may be the only person in New York who has met the Pope. He puffs with pleasure. I've pure chance, my wife, Michelle and I had been at the Vatican 10 days before, and the Pope had been doing one of his masses, so I was able to talk about being in his presence. And from such loose connections, reputations spring. As delivery may circumvent absolute rigor, he's never dishonest about the nature of these encounters. Indeed, he does enjoy genuine and lasting bonds, and some of those in his collection. Worry about being seen as a buffoon? I don't really. I'm happy inside my own skin. The buffoon is a product of the woolly jumpers in the 1980s and TV AM. It was a costume. I've earning money before breakfast, but 9 a.m. came and I then took off the woolly jumpers. It was a conscious branding idea, he tells me. If you're not particularly beautiful, what is going to make you memorable? And it worked. I've not worn one in public since 1989. 30 years later, I cannot go on the underground without someone saying to me, "Where's your woolly jumper?" But disadvantage advantage is that if you're someone who is also interested in prison reform, does your credibility get devalued because of being someone who larks about? I reject the charge of glibness. I reject the charge of fundamental triviality. I like having a bit of fun, but it's not the totality of my week. The totality of his week involves an unseemly plethora of competing interests. As a child, he was serving in the three West London churches at once. I suppose my parents encouraged me, but I also like being busy. I saw myself as a bit of a professional. As an undergraduate at Oxford, he was president of a union, editor of Vices magazine, while writing a column for the Sherwell student newspaper, staging a Victorian pantomime at the Oxford Playhouse. Does he worry about being a dilettante? I'm conscious of it, and I try to do everything thoroughly so that in my head I know that I'm doing it properly. But does he never feel that he's selling himself short? He has a sharp intellect, but he sticks with quiz shows. He's an insightful interviewer, but he mainly writes about his pals. He tells me that he wants to write a marvellous novel, but his hinterland is children's fiction. He must have a coherent and serious political overview about his time in government, but he restricts himself to writing diddy comment pieces about fancying Labour MPs. He concentrates. The fundamental challenge I face is I don't want to do any one of these things exclusively. I want in my head to feel that I'm delivering on my potential. Who had that experience of realizing that you're not Shakespeare, and then great freedom is allowed in, because if you're not Shakespeare, it doesn't much matter what you do, you're not in Hops your gift. We're only here once, and there are lots of things I want to do, and I'm going to do them full stop. His father, a lawyer and a liberal, would have agreed with me, he says. It was a sadness of his. He was anxious I was profligate with my gifts. He recalls being asked as an undergraduate what his ambition was. I said that I wanted to be a sort of Danny Kaye and then Home Secretary. I ended up as a Lord Commissioner of the Treasury for a year before losing his Chester seat in 1997 and on the fringe at Edinburgh. So you ask me what I've achieved, don't think I haven't got a proper sense of proportion. He is a conservative. He insists he likes being involved from the bottom up. Though when you get him on something like housing policy, he ends up sounding a lot more like Tony Benn. The truth is, I do actually in certain areas want to make a difference rather than make noise. In a review of Breaking the Code, Brandish Westminster Diaries, Breaking the Code, which, while never quite as sensational as advertised, were beautifully executed. Boris Johnson noted about what makes him a true conservative and a great asset to his party. So is that he does not have much ideological bite or edge. Brandreth is very bright, but one suspects that he suffers from agreeing too much with the last person he talked to. I can't imagine him doing ideological battle, but I could see him acting very princessy when he doesn't get his own way. He is, of course, also a conservative, and on stage he embraces why it can be hip to be square. He's a typical middle-class, middle-aged, middle England. It's cheerily, those are my values. I am what my parents made me. One of the reasons I'm doing all the things that I'm doing is to fulfill an old-fashioned agenda. I think that's the kind of the thing here. There's a sense of him being a conservative because he is almost habitually conservative, rather than necessarily having any clear positions. He describes his wife as a personification of integrity, and one sense of it is largely what allows him to his sturdy ego and inveterate self-confidence. Were she here, she could probably fill in the gaps that leave the rest of the world irritated or overrun by her husband. What do I like? He says, getting what I want. The other day we were at an 80th birthday party for the mother of some friends. I made a speech and drank my first glass of wine. I was really ready for another, but there were a lot of people around me, and I signaled to Michelle, who had a bottle near her. Went straight at me. You over there, I said. Are you talking to me? She said, you? Yes, you over there, you're the person, aren't you, who's had everything they've ever wanted. Well, you seem to want another glass of wine. He breathes deep with delight, and look, you're going to get that too. He mimes her pouring. After lunch, I watch a run-through of Zip. At one point, they sing the Time Warp. Dr. Frankenfurter stands in front of the rest of the cast, jerking his hips in a fashion that deviates markedly from the more rhythmically attuned behind him. Afterwards, the group's choreographer gives them her notes. Are you doing the thrusts your own way, Giles? She asks. Yes, he replies brightly. It is very hard because, yes, there is the breadth, but the ESC also grows into that breadth. I guess what I need is a sense of what he was like when he was younger. And he was already going broad when he was younger. Yes, exactly, Isaac. Exactly. The one thing is accessibility. And that is sort of alpha in general. Yes, he is excited by words, but it's clear to me he goes with someone else to be the sort of word expert. He doesn't, he is intellectually interested without it appears to really be an intellectual force himself. He is very clearly an entertainer, and I think there is that charisma to him. I don't get the sense there is any introverted intuition at all. I don't get the sense of his introverted logic is necessarily strong. There is a certain... It's interesting about the dilettante. I want to explore the dilettante part more. That's another thing which doesn't quite make sense for an Eiley. Is seemingly frivolous fields. While he often describes his approach as doing things properly, critical will label him as such because he dips into too many areas of sticking to one of focusing on feel-good entertainment or trivia. It is diverse and eclectic. A sucker for trivia and oddities. Yep. Middle brow focus is magnetic attraction to the middle brow, focusing on entertaining and feel-good content such as his times wincing and gaudy knitwear. Unconventional projects. Musical reviews, zip, okay. But he views his work as serious business or conscientious. Now, a dilettante, that's not even the meaning of a dilettante. That isn't the meaning of dilettante. It's superficial. Okay. Okay. So there's a lack of depth to what he's doing. Interest in something doesn't have any knowledge about the interest. Okay. So he views it as conscientious. Hmm. Yeah. It's hmm. I'm actually leaning more ESC. I'm leaning more ESC now. There isn't any clear sign of controversy or failure in terms of his extroverted ethics. No, he's not been involved in any kind of scandal. There's public discussion regarding his political careers, content public figures, media appearances, self-blame for Rod Hull's death. Made headlines by stating he felt responsible to enter Rod Hull. Kind of he had encouraged Hull to fix his TV error during the storm on the night he died, saying, "I encouraged him. I killed the man." Goodness. As a regular contributor to ITV's This Morning, he has occasionally generated debate. He was involved in a light-hearted, awkward moment when he briefly walked off set following a banter-filled segment. In late 2025, he defended the idea of keeping in touch with Prince Andrew, leading to a heated discussion on the show about the Duke of York's private reputation. Yeah. I wonder if his upbringing, his going to Oxford, his being associated with intellectual circles, without being a distinct intellectual contributor himself, but rather being a TV personality, an entertainer, that this is the thing which leads him to have a more intellectual veneer, but under that intellectual veneer seems to me to be much more, yeah, lacking any kind of depth. It does feel quite trivial at times. And the key thing is he's very, very busy. He seems to have a lot of energy, even now, a great deal of energy for doing lots of different things. What is this about? Hmm. Is it This Morning? All right. I'll look at that one. Let me look at this first and I'll look at that one.
If your Tuesday morning looks calm and predictable, you're definitely not on live TV.
No, I don't.
Expect the unexpected.
No.
Giles Brandreth is on This Morning, chatting with Ben Shepherd and Kat Deely about revenge quitting. You know, leaving a job with a surprise exit just for the drama. Suddenly, Giles stands up, makes a grand announcement that it's been lovely knowing everyone, and literally walks off the set. Live on air.
Oh, for goodness sake.
Pleading, "Oh, Giles, don't," while Ben jokes about the cost of Giles's grandkids. Because priorities. The whole thing, totally unscripted, absolutely hilarious. And
Okay, it was clearly a joke. Okay, that's not. Right, I want to see this.
Well, here we are. John Major, born 29th of March 1943. Sir John, I'm here to ask you our very first question, which is simply, what?
Yeah.
You are resilient.
It's not what Mum would want it.
No, and not what your dad would have wanted. As a Victorian, we do these things. The date is booked. and you're doing this for your mother-in-law, who has been looking forward to this. Yes. We will go through with it, and you did, and it worked well.
All of those things it did, yes.
Yeah, that's good.
That was 55 years ago now.
When you were young, you mentioned your political hero, Ian MacLeod. Who were your...
So I don't see introverted sensation as a suggestive function.
1950s, 1960s. Who are the people you thought, yes?
Well, it's difficult to get the times right. I think Bruce Forsyth, who I thought was a brilliant media polymath, if you can put it that way. He could do so much. I loved him. Do you remember Mrs. Mills at the piano?
Oh, I do.
Yes. I thought you might.
Oh, I loved her.
And of course, in terms of films, were people like John Mills, who was around. But as for sport, Stanley Matthews, of course, the famous 1953 final against Bolton when they won 4-3 after being 3-1 down with 15 minutes to go. Peter May, PBH May.
These are real old school people.
He got me in real trouble.
Peter May, go.
Yeah, absolutely.
What happened?
My father had nothing, as I said, but he did have a gold watch that he'd been presented at some stage. Who by, I don't know, wasn't inscribed. It was a stopwatch. And you may remember Peter May was a wonderful batsman, particularly famous for his on-drive. And I wanted to time how long it took the ball from Peter May's bat to crossing the boundary with one of his on-drives. So I persuaded Dad to lend it to me. And he did. And I was holding it between my thumb and first finger, with my finger on the stopwatch button.
I did also notice he described this. One thing he describes of not being good at is not being a good businessman. He didn't dwell much on it though, but I thought that was quite interesting.
Watch. It was very much an X-watch. It was in pieces. So I had to go home and tell my dad that his only real valuable possession was suddenly dead. And he had the pieces in his hand and he could spit through his eyesight problems. And he just looked at it. He just looked at me.
John Major, by the way,
Tell me about
very likely to be an LII. We typed him Paul.
Oh my goodness. When you are such as you are, and as you always were, an entertaining person with such an entertaining background, such a variety of interests, why do you think that you were portrayed as this grey figure? I mean, it's partly obviously the fault of spitting image making you a grey person. But when did that begin? And did it annoy you? Or
I'm not in a position to analyse that. You could probably analyse it better than me.
Well, I can't because I have been trying to analyse it. And I've been analysing it since 19...
Charles, if you can't do it, what chance there is of me doing it?
I've tried to analyse it since 1992 when you came to the city of Chester, where I was standing for the first time.
I remember.
And you brought, I think it was almost the first outing of your soapbox.
I mean, the one who went up, when we began, I spoke to them at a crowd gathering about serving the people who elect you, not just your constituency, them of course, but the country. It appealed to the people. Remember
this perception of you then as this grey person, I think maybe partly to do with your speaking voice. You asked me to analyse it, because certainly if people knew you, I mean, we always used to say, when you meet John Major, you vote for John Major. That was a line we all took because it was true. And there was maybe people felt something different happened when you were on the screen and when you spoke. Though now I say that, I'm now thinking of that wonderful speech. I can't remember what it was, but you ended up
killed. And still do, to my own children and to Norma.
Well, I think we have to agree then that it's inexplicable that you were depicted as this grey man. We can't work out what it was. Did you resent it though at the time? Or did you? You did notice it because you said that you shouldn't. You knew that you shouldn't read the newspapers, but I do remember you often commenting on them. So you did notice, and just what could you do? It's irritating, isn't it? Just got to get on with it.
Well, I did go prematurely grey, of course.
To help them out. Yes. But I do remember you wouldn't wear makeup. You may have forgotten this.
May have missed this part in Macaulay. I can't quite find it.
You had to wear makeup. And we encouraged you to wear makeup. You said that.
Let's see what it says. What's this? Passion, curiosity, and creative enjoyment over profitability. Is openly motivated various business pursuits. Choosing plays have frequently lost money. Lack of financial motivation, not driven by money. Well, it's not valued. Failed ventures and monetary losses. He admitted that while he has enjoyed everything he has done, his ventures of theatre production were a nightmare and lost money. Jack of all trades, but a relentlessly curious soul that led him to jump between careers as a TV presenter, theatre producer, journalist, author, and publisher. Lack of focus on one specific business model prevented him from building a singular profitable empire. His projects based on interest rather than business potential, such as founding a teddy bear museum or the British Nationals. See, it does strike me as the extrovert's intuition of a mobilizing function rather than a leading function. Relentlessly curious and busy person. Almost the busyness needs to be, can't be looked at. The energy that he has is so apparent, even in you know, he's quite old now. How old is he now? And also his ability as a royal confidant as well suggests a certain amount of delicacy in relationships, even whilst being someone who's very much a public figure. He can handle that delicacy to some degree. I'm not actually, I don't think, I certainly think he suppresses introverted ethics, but I don't think it actually is a blind spot. The anecdote king. Why is he the anecdote king? That's the thing. There's actually quite a bit of detail when he talks about things, even remembering his father surrounded by his bills. It is aggressively pointless. Exactly. It is aggressively You're absolutely right, Isaac. It's aggressively pointless. A vast repository of stories involving high-profile figures from royalty to show business. Reputation stems from his ability to deliver witty, fast-paced, often self-deprecating tales, particularly on panel shows like QI in Just a Minute. His vast network and experience, performance style, self-deprecating humor. Which was wit and encyclopedic memory. But it's an encyclopedic memory for people, for events that have happened. It's not a memory for the abstract. It's not a memory for concepts so much. I think I've managed to convince myself. I think he's an ESC. I think he's an ESC. I don't actually think he's an Eiley. Something's not right. It's been niggling me this whole time. I think he's an ESC. I think he's an ESC with an Oxford education, a very sort of posh posh background, where he certainly delights in the intellect and is drawn to intellectual fields, but is not himself someone who is strong in the intuition and the logic. What did he start off doing? Let's go back to the beginning. With modern history and modern languages. Why modern? It's actually it's very normy going to doing modern history and modern languages, not ancient history, not something which is further off. It's very local. It's very recent stuff. It's very metropolitan. I'll also note, just going back to the one thing when the most earliest appearance that I could found of him, 1970, is where he's asked about as an Oxford student. What does he
I
say?
think we'll win in the end.
That's not him.
Giles, Brandreth, you been finishing your finals today.
Yeah. Only a few hours ago.
And you also took the journey all the way to London.
Trip to London for 20 and a half. and who may well be Home Secretary. The only sinister part of the election,
Sinister part.
in terms of the Tory victory, is the fact of the great support that obviously has been shown for Enoch Powell and the effect that he has had. Now, this is slightly going to tarnish the Tory victory.
Tarnish the Tory victory.
Yeah, certainly among young people anyway. Yeah. It has anyway been caused by Enoch and his recent sort of McCarthyite speech.
So that is very interesting. At that quite young age, he's in his 20s, and he is conveying distaste towards Enoch Powell. Now, this would have been Enoch Powell's Rivers of Blood speech, which was very shocking at the time. Some people on what now deemed to be the right of politics, of course, back then what was the right is no longer seen to be so much the right. Now people who would be seen as being on the right of politics, which has shifted further right, you could say, they would say Enoch Powell may have been quite right in certain aspects of his Rivers of Blood speech. So it's actually less controversial, but back then it was deeply, deeply shocking in terms of what he said. And I find it very interesting that at this young age in university, what Brandreth is doing here is condemning Enoch Powell's speech and conveying that and focusing on how affronting it is to have written such perhaps in his view a very unwelcoming speech, a speech which talks about immigrants, talks about people of other skin tones in a way which they will someone have a whip hand over the white man and that sort of thing. He's focused on that. I think that's quite interesting. It suggests a fixation on ethical matters, on how people may feel and react to things, and where something is quite disruptive, and taking issue with that disruptiveness quite early. So yes, I think going down to all of this for as long as we have, I think ESC is probably right. And I think he is perhaps quite an intelligent ESC. He doesn't strike me. He does not strike me as an Nihili for these reasons. I just don't see the introvert intuition. I don't see much of any of the introverted logic. I wanted to go into the language part. Like, is he the one really delving into the structure of language? And no, he's got someone else to really do that. He is there to sort of, he's the entertainer of the two, not the intellectual. He never really seems to be the intellectual. And he's sort of dismissed as an intellectual. Extensive lot of literature, history, and wordplay, which for wit, high energy storytelling. Yeah, he went to Oxford, fine. Passionate about words, fine. But President of Oscar Wilde Society, written a series of novels including featuring Oscar Wilde as a detective. Has several acclaimed biographies. This is the thing. This is the thing. The difference between extrovert intuition as a leading function and extrovert intuition as a mobilizing function is that one can be supported by introvert intuition and the other one cannot be. So when it comes to extrovert intuition, when it's supported by introvert intuition, we see some degree towards being able to tell which possibilities are the most pregnant with other possibilities, which ones will open up into other things. If you don't have that, you just pursue possibilities without any sense of direction, without any sense of some of them being heavier in any way than others, which leads to, as is described, the dilettante, the dabbler, without any kind of selection for unlocking then greater. But therefore, there's a lot of energy, a lot of activity, but ultimately doesn't lead to anything. It ultimately doesn't unlock any new distinct possibilities. It stays quite trivial. And I think that to me is very much a sign of an ESC and not an ILE. All right. So I think ESE. Tucker Carlson. I'm inclined to think EIE, but I'd be interested in looking into him more at some point. I would. I'm not set on EIE for him. Right. I did promise that I would look into one of Intreon's suggestions, and that one was. I'm sorry it's taken so long. I need to say, well, Kenneth Tynan. Who is Kenneth Tynan? Celebrated with heroic acting, turned into committed critic during his years of the. Okay, so basically, again, associated with the theatre. Right. Okay. I want to look at Intreon's suggestion. Which one is it again? I've missed it. And again, I'm doing this because Intreon, I owe Intreon. So let me see. Which one do you suggest? I can't remember. I'm trying to find Brock Lesnar. Right. Brock Lesnar. Let's do that. American professional wrestler and former mixed martial artist. Right. Oof. That is one chunky fella. Okay. You're departed WWE to perform the Minnesota Vikings of the National Football League, was cut from the team during pre-session. He won the WWE Championship at age 25. Amazing. Youngest performer to win the championship. Professional wrestling style and persona, which is a powerhouse athlete, often called, was nicknamed the Beast Incarnate, so he'd be the Beast. His initial run, when he was consistently main eventing, he was in what is labeled by the company and fans as the ruthless aggression era. Good finishing maneuver for his entire career has been the fireman's carry facebuster. Was matched at WrestleMania. He left WWE to pursue a career in professional football, to not play the sport since high school. While he enjoyed his time in WWE, he became disillusioned with the lifestyle and to explore football before it was not too late. Emphasizing his competitive drive, said that the decision was not a publicity stunt, but a serious personal goal. He was not. WWE, it's not real wrestling. And this is a proper sport. Football. Derailed when he's injured in a motorcycle accident, suffering multiple injuries, including a broken jaw and hand. He worked out for the Minnesota Vikings in June. The team in late July. In several preseason games, defensive tackle before being released in August. Kind of opportunity to desire to remain in the United States with his family. So that's under the Vikings. Several official football trading cards, which Lesnar was released. Mixed martial arts. Then he actually went into some proper fighting. Joined the Ultimate Fighting Championship with one fight contract. But losing his debut, he was offered a new contract at UFC. His post-match celebration, he flipped off the crowd who had been booing him. It was made a disparaging comment about the pay-per-views primarily sponsored Bud Light, claiming they won't pay me nothing. Okay, so yeah, so this is a guy who takes competition seriously. Started off as so much more performance-oriented, but wanted to actually compete properly. He had twins with his former fiance in 2002, daughter Lynn. He's a intensely private individual who expressed disdain for the media, rarely participates in interviews, and avoids questions related to his private life. The Republican Party, the National Rifle Association, periods, anyways, national annual meeting. He developed interest in alcohol and Paykel into his first run in WWE, claiming that he would drink a bottle of vodka per day, take hundreds of Vicodin pills. Goodness. So the incident in which he botched the shooting star press at WrestleMania and landed on the top of his head as a primary source of pain. And the entire 2 years made up to his first WWE tenure. Goodness. Previously signed a non-compete clause to be released from his contract with WWE, which was prohibited from working with any other wrestling professional or wrestling companies before June 2010. He was ruling in court and a counterclaim. Charge of hunting infractions on trip to Alberta. 2 months were dropped, but he'll go to charge of improper tagging of an animal. It's fine 1725 to give them 6-month hunting suspension. Right. He was retired to a farm. Interesting. Right. Let's take a look. This?
Have you ever had a fan come out in the middle of Seth freaking Rollins? You know, he was walking out of Raw and somebody came sprinting behind the barrier and tried to spear him. I fucking dare somebody. Have you ever had a fan come out in the middle of Seth freaking Rollins? He was.
Okay. 5 months ago. Goodness. Can't. Got there. Hmm. 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 Come on. Come on. There we go. We're back. Hello, everyone. Right. Sorry about that. Let's instead watch an interview with Brock Lesnar. One that's not on the WWE channel. Hmm. Hmm.
They took me to Australia, and I'm in the ring. I'm in a triple threat match with Dwayne and Paul Triple H. And I was just having this conversation with Triple H a few days last time I was at TV about him and Dwayne kind of just leaving me out of the loop on purpose, because to get out there and to that's the only way you learn is if you're out there, you know. And so
sink or swim.
Yeah, you better swim or you know you're gone. So it was a great opportunity for me, and Dwayne did a lot of Dwayne. That was really awesome. Dwayne was leaving, and people can say what they want about Dwayne in the business, but I tell you what, the guy was. He taught me to be selfish. He taught me to watch my back, and if you're gonna thrive in this business, you know, you gotta be selfish. You got the time forgiven is.
You won that title right off the, you know, very quickly, and did all of a sudden you think, hey man, this is gonna be an easy ride. I'm the champion.
I guess to me the business was so new and so intriguing. When I first got on the road, I was going up and down the road, you know, drinking beers, staying in different hotels, staying in different environments,
gimmicks, yeah.
And you know, so it was all very intriguing and stimulating in the beginning, you know. So
yeah, it got me a couple of bars. Yeah, so
the stimulation factor of everything, and then the reality of everything. You start living your life. Everything, you know, you portray this person on TV, and you portray all these things.
But also, is it people's perception of you from seeing you be this guy on TV, feed into it, and they want to define who and what you are, when not necessarily that's the case?
Well, really, I'm no different on TV than I really am. I really don't like people. I'm sorry, I don't. That's just who I am.
Talk to me about that. What do you mean you don't like people?
I just don't like being around a bunch of people, and it's kind of ironic because I can go out in an arena full of 20,000 people and be all right with it. Only because I feel like I feel like I'm in this dome and I'm protected, you know. But you get me out in public and or anywhere around a bunch of people, and I don't do well.
Are you antisocial, or is it a I don't want to say a phobia? Is it just
not a phobia? No, I just don't. I get uncomfortable.
You don't mix well with others, for
no,
you.
I don't play well.
It's not like you're trying to be. That's just who you are.
That's just who I am. That's why I live out in the middle of nowhere. That's why I got a 8-foot fence around my property. That's why I shut the gate when I come and go. That's just who I am.
Interesting. What else can we see about that?
Interesting dude. Everything that you've heard about him and read about him is dead on.
Mm.
He was actually saying things that would probably get canceled, like
phobic terms that you shouldn't be saying.
Well, really, I'm no different on TV than I really am. I really don't like people. I'm sorry, I don't.
If Brock is your friend, he will give you the shirt off his back. Nice guy in the world, fun, cool to hang around. Doesn't like you. He's what you're seeing on TV. That's an act.
Brock Lesnar has many faces. The bully at school, the thug in the bar, the entertainer in the spotlight, the filthy rich businessman, the best fighter in the world, but also the loyal friend, the supportive father, the husband who needs his home as a retreat, a life full of contradictions, a man caught between violence and responsibility, between the stage and his privacy, between beast and man. His taste in music gives an insight into his personality.
I'm hardcore country guy. And then on the other side of things, Metallica, AC/DC.
The
I
two
wonder if he's
sides of
ESI.
Lesnar that shine through again and again. The easy rancher and the aggressive brawler.
If God was to sit there and like build a war,
I'm built like a black man. Stay focused, train hard, and train smart. For me, the older I get, the smarter I have to train also, because the recovery time is longer. Can everything, I'm a well-rounded fighter. Don't just be good at one thing, be good at everything. Private guy, and I really do care about my family. That's the most important thing, my way of life, my family. Whoever is in front of that is going to get hurt. Never been in the habit to look back. The guy's supposed to face. I think he was just plain down scared to get in the ring with me because he was one of those guys who was on top and saw a huge threat. But at the time, Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'm not a very good yes man, and I'm not very easily controlled. I was fascinated by strength. Arnold's an idol of mine. I'm a big believer in living out your dreams and facing your fears. Strength is my wrestling, but I don't focus on it on it as much. I focus on a lot of different things like knees, elbow, submission, defense, just a lot of different things. And titles don't pay bills. I fight for money. I'm making money. They're making money. Everyone's making money. That's what this is all about. I'm always staying motivated because as training camp goes on, practice becomes more intense, harder and shorter. It's a mental thing too, and not only physical. Stay mentally sharp, stay focused on the task in front of you. I think he's a gamma. I think it's pretty clear off the bat he's a gamma. It's not about the publicity for him. He wants to make money. He wants to be able to compete. It doesn't sound to me like the whole, he'll do a job for WWE for money, but it's not about, he doesn't particularly enjoy the audience aspect of it. He thought he was going to be a farmer. I don't hang my championship trophies on the wall because they don't pay the bills. Exactly. It's not extroverted ethics oriented. It's not, but it's about it's extroverted logic valuing. If I can't outplay you in football, I'm going to fight you. I never come out and said I hold the most pay-per-view buys. All I know is what I got paid, and I'm happy. I just take it one fight at a time. If I'm able to fight, and I'm still healthy enough to fight, but I'll know when it's time to stop. Well, that was more like to rule out an LIE, for instance. My hands, I constantly work on my hands, I constantly work on my ground game, and constantly trying not to get satisfied with where I'm at with my career, where I'm at as an athlete. I'm somewhat happy, but never satisfied. One match really sticks out for me. There's a bunch of matches with all the guys I work with. For me, when I got in the ring, I approached it as being real because I was a real character. I didn't have a gimmick name. I didn't have a gimmick finish. Never didn't have it to look back.
year, they think it would come out to be Brock Lesnar. That is one big dude.
Brock Lesnar is a bona fide monster.
Athletically, Brock Lesnar is far superior to anyone.
The animal is licking his lip.
Brock Lesnar does what Brock Lesnar wants to do. God's gifted me with great looks and one hell of a body. That helps. When you got this going on,
Lesnar loves the spotlight, but avoids it at the same time. He enjoys it, but has to spend weeks recovering from it. His talent is fighting, and making scripted fights look real. Two of his greatest assets.
I never turned down a fight, even as a young kid. I hate to say it, but ever since I was a little kid, I just been a bully.
Lesnar's roots tell a lot about him, and still shape him today.
Huge man. Huge even then.
I grew up in South Dakota.
Brock Edward Lesnar. He weighed 9'9", and they called him pork chops.
Yeah, this is the farm I grew up on. We used to have about 200 head of cows. I left here in 1996.
Brock's childhood was not one of action figures and matchbox cars. Every day he had to milk the cows, muck out the barn, haul hay and firewood. Endless fields and heavy machinery were his playground.
Even at the age of 4 and 5, he wanted to help on the farm. He was really a worker.
His raw strength comes from incessant work. From dawn to dusk, on most days. He also started strength training at the early age of 7.
He likes showing off his muscles.
I was always active. I was always doing push-ups, always doing sit-ups, always working out as long as I can remember. It's kind of backwoodsy, you know, kind of out in the country. Not a lot going on. Everybody knows everybody, and everybody knows everybody's business. Used to have some good times here and some hard times. We didn't have a hell of a lot to, you know, there wasn't extra money left over for us. You just get used to living like, you know, like you're broke, and we were broke. And so it's, you just get, it's a way of life.
The people in his hometown of Webster remember Brock with amazement.
Brock was robust.
Very independent, headstrong.
I don't think I've ever figured that around.
Oh, I've known Brock since he was, gosh, do I dare to tell him? Since you were in diapers?
Brock had a reputation, but not necessarily a good one.
I was a very aggressive young kid, eager to do anything, always up for any challenges. As a young kid, I was a kid that was beating up the other kids on the playground. I always had a chip on my shoulder, and I still do. I don't know why, but that's just my attitude.
Those who saw him grow up say Brock never cried. He simply didn't allow himself to. Sometimes children forbid themselves to cry out of fear of showing weakness or because they have learned that tears are not allowed. Psychological research shows that suppressed negative emotion, they cannot find a suitable outlet, children resort to what is tangible. Their body, their strength, their impulse. In Brock's case, grief became anger, and pain became aggression. Even as a boy, he vented his anger in fights. His body became an outlet. What seemed like coldness to some was actually a protective mechanism, an armor that he put on early in his life, channeled his frustrations, and began to wrestle. On the mat, he could let his anger out without getting in trouble.
I can remember people being scared to wrestle me because I was very physical. If you wrestle me, you're going to get beat up. Other people have feelings, but I don't have feelings.
His wrestling coach remembers moments when Brock went so crazy after losing a round that he could hardly be contained.
He always had a little bit of a temper and was very aggressive.
But there was a problem. Time and again, Brock had to compete below his weight class. It was the same thing every match. Brock outweighed his opponents. He tried to lose.
Decided that he was going to be a big guy that would keep feeding him.
Yeah, I was always hungry. Always. It was like I had a tape on me.
When he worked for me on the farm, we had 7 hired men and our own kids, and we would eat one meal, and my mother would make the separate meal for Brock because he would eat all ours if we didn't.
His massive body also helped him in other sports. Brock was one of the best high school football players in the state.
Yeah, I was good. I had more scholarship opportunities as a football player. I had 0 opportunities as a wrestler coming out of high school.
But after high school, Brock was disoriented. The country life was simple, which he liked, but also monotonous. Young people in Webster had to make their own entertainment. Brock hunted a lot, drove for hours along the endless gravel roads of the prairie,
Yep.
and drank alcohol almost every day. Between freedom and emptiness, he didn't know what to do with himself. He felt out of place, like a man born in the wrong era. He would have preferred to be a Viking, a warrior from another time.
It would be good to be a medieval soldier and a swordsman. Like, there's many of my swords.
Brock joined the military at 17. He wanted to get out of Webster.
Mm.
He wanted to get out of boredom. He dreamed of war, of living a soldier's life, preferably in the explosive squad. But things turned out differently. The test showed Brock is colorblind. He has a red-green deficiency. Instead of front lines, bullets, and explosions, he got a desk job, and he hated it.
Oh, goodness.
When he failed a simple computer typing test, his military service ended. Back in Webster, he started working for a construction company. Heavy physical labor.
I spent almost 2 months in the basement that I was living in the house that we were in. And I fell into probably some depression, where I fell into a rut where I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself.
During this time, Lesnar
Oh,
had one
not
fight
again.
after another. One
Right. Right. Okay, that was brief. Okay. Let's see what else. Are there more interviews?
Rock, how you doing tonight, man? Dominating performance, man. I gotta ask. Your light's not on. Oh shit. No, it's good. It's good. I got the Brock. Now, Brock, I gotta ask you, when did Undertaker's WrestleMania streak and pretty much defeated John Cena for the title? What's left for Brock Lesnar to do?
Well, this is the defining moment in my career. I don't think. I think it's just one of those things where I look at it as I'm just getting started.
I see you coming out of Morton's. What do you eat to celebrate? Once you dominate like that. He ate John Cena tonight. For lunch and for dinner. Basically he ate John Cena, but
for me, it's it's just get my fill of red meat.
Okay.
That's what it's all about tonight. Celebrating,
I see the belt here. Let's get a look at the belt here because I'm you got both belts. Look at this. Now, are you?
And by the way, they still have John Cena's name on it. So look at that.
Oh man. Oh, okay.
Now talk about taking the titles. Taking the title.
So, intro, why don't you look at his first attempts at cutting promos? What's that? Is it like his WWE debut? Is that what you mean? Hmm. Bud Light promo, is this what it is? Okay, I'll do funny moments. Fine.
On or by the expiration of this agreement, 1 year. You said you were from Canada, but what?
Yeah, I can't. Okay, we're back. Can't read this. Let's see what else we can find. Why is doing control to be returned? Strong return at WWE SummerSlam, set of fireworks. As the Beast Incarnate dropped John Cena with his signature F5. So an ordinary surprise moment. It causes serious controversy, legal implications, fan outrage to ongoing allegations involving Vince McMahon and former WWE employee General Grant. Publicly named because Vince McMahon tried to set up some sort of sexualized content with Brock Lesnar. But he wasn't a defendant in this. Right. Okay, that's not really very informative. I mean, I get the impression someone used gamma values with a balance of introverted sensing and extroverted sensing from the look of it. Seem to keep people out. Finds, is okay in the spotlight, but finds it also very, very draining and has to spend time on the farm after such appearances. Yeah, I'm more worried to show any more interviews now. Maybe shorts.
First of all, Brock, congratulations. You got your revenge. What's your thoughts on the fight? You were very worked up even after the fight. Even you still were upset and you got in his face. Tell us why you're still upset. Frank Mir had a horseshoe up his ass. I told him that a year ago. I put that some bitch out and I beat him up.
He doesn't seem to be interested at all in courting public opinion.
It's like done. You got it done tonight. You've only had 5 MMA fights ever, and you've already avenged your one loss. Give us thoughts about your future and what you expect next as a challenge to your title. I love it. I love it. I'm gonna go home tonight. I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing. I'm gonna sit down with my friends and family. And hell,
Friends and family.
see you.
There's TM. Thomas from Belgium. Okay. I could get away with showing this.
Not the most social guy in the world. He's even stated that he doesn't like people.
I really don't like people. I'm sorry, I don't.
There have been some rare instances, however, where Brock has shown his softer side, creating some very wholesome moments. Back at SummerSlam 2002, Brock Lesnar faced The Rock for the WWE title, with his parents watching from the crowd. The night before, however, Brock told his parents that he was going to lose.
He told us last night I was gonna win. You gotta win.
I just wanted that information and surprise for them.
This made his win even more special, leading to some very wholesome moments.
I'm really excited and proud.
Goodness. His parents look like a different species to him.
Brock Lesnar right after the SmackDown. How you feeling, bro?
Good, man.
That was a lot of fun. My first time getting to watch him do his thing.
And he was a beast out there. The people loved him. Thank you.
Brock is known for not having the nicest interactions with his fans.
And all of a sudden, Brock walks into the room, into the changing room. He's pissed. He says, "Man, this kid keeps following me around every machine I go on. It sits next to me. I get up. I go to the 3 weights. It sits next to the bench. Just keeps following me around everywhere I go.
You know what? This fan, however, got a pleasant surprise by Brock when he randomly met him at a gas station. Here's what he had to say. I was just pulling over to get gas at a gas station here in Toronto, Canada at about 8 a.m. Then a few minutes later, a white SUV car comes in, and out comes Brock alone. He wanted to get gas, too. I was shocked because I didn't expect him at all.
Does charity work without public knowing about it?
Since he doesn't live in Toronto.
Yeah.
Apparently, he comes here to do charity work every year, and he likes to do it without the public knowing about it. I mean, that's awesome. Good for him. I have so much more respect for him now for that. Anyway, the first thing I noticed was he was wearing Under Armour clothing, and he's a massive human being. I didn't want to approach him at first because he's scary looking, intimidating, and has a really unique presence to him. But anyway, since he was alone, I waved at him and he smirked and gave me a nod. Then I approached him. We talked for a few minutes.
I'm thinking ESI for him.
He's the only celebrity I have ever met, by the way. Very wholesome.
I'll let you hang. Come here. Thank you.
At SummerSlam 2023, Brock Lesnar faced Cody Rhodes in a pretty...
The guy clearly maintains distances with other people. And yeah, all the good stuff he does is very private. His public appearance is purely for the money.
Completely unplanned. Completely.
He seems to have very good control over his body, very much athleticism, but seems to also keep it largely together as well. I mean, he did have a motorcycling injury, of course, but you know.
After Brock Lesnar moved to Canada, he became a big hockey fan because of his kids.
My kids are Jets fans. Now I'm a Jets fan, so here we are.
Definitely very grounded in sort of that sort of farming, rural life, needing to go back there for recuperation.
Just for tonight, though.
He is huge.
Watch out. My lungs
He is able to relate to others. He just doesn't like these group interactions. He has to have a good connection with people. So I think the introverted ethics is quite clear. I don't think it's a lie. I don't think it's a lie for him.
Webster High School time, beat his old amateur wrestling trainers. Here he is.
It does not strike me as a Delta at all. His motivation is very Gamma. If you look for those quotes, they're very Gamma.
Yeah.
So why did... Extreme burnt from a relentless full-time touring schedule, which he felt was negative about his health and personal life. Just think, he does have good one, Blobfish. Yeah, he does seem to have yeah, he does seem to have a certain amount of energy. He can run out of energy, and it can create burnout. Then, like, creative direction and compensation. Yeah. The mental strain, top to immense stress and physical pain, which tried to cope with by doing excessive alcohol and medication use. Yeah. The creative dissatisfaction also kind of fits where introvert intuition's in a more stubborn position. To a lifelong dream and escape from the grueling travel schedule of WWE, to having no college football experience, he had left a lucrative wrestling career to try it out for the Minnesota Vikings. athletic limits and avoid future regrets. And still a wrestling background, felt confident in his abilities, while not doing it for money, taking a massive pay cut from the WWE contract to pursue NFL. Well, a serious motorcycle accident, suffering injuries were impacted his performance, though he went to the preseason roster before being cut. So why did he join UFC? To a genuine athletic challenge after leaving El Dido in a failed NFL bid. Want to test himself in a legitimate sport rather than scripted entertainment. Exactly. He does not like scripted. We wanted to demonstrate his competence. His elite amateur wrestling skills in MMA is drawn by the premier professional nature of the PFC.
Because I couldn't live with that decision. I don't want to be sitting 20 years from now saying, you know what, son, you should have went and did that. That chapter of my life, I didn't like the way the chapter ended, so I couldn't continue the book and move forward.
So finally, eventually, he's just decided, yep, I'll throw my hat back at the ring.
Now that he's answered the Octagon's call, the world wonders what if.
He does think,
What if this
where am I going to be at the end of my life? And have I been able to do this or not? Which I think does fit very much into the introvert intuition.
Stand across from him on July 9th.
Only Metro PCS brings it.
Right. I'll enter the Octagon to avoid future regret about not pursuing a legitimate fighting career. He actually became UFC heavyweight champion. Incredible. Done as he had done in wrestling in high school, college, and motorsports entertainment. He struggles to make 265 pounds and moves like a guy who weighs 150 pounds. He just guys move correctly, throw punches, kicks, and submit guys like guys go to create problems. To mention the 2000 NCAA national champion wrestler. Yeah. He says he's an amateur wrestler first and pro wrestler second. There's some humility there. The wrestling is who I am. I'm going to evolve as a fighter. Unfortunately, I have a black cloud on my head because I was a pro wrestler. I had a point to prove tonight, but I am a fighter. I have a very big heart for this fight game. I'm going to be around for a while. Make his presence known. He jumped down to the main floor, pushed his way through the crowd and walked right past security. Once near the octagon, he found him directly behind Dana White, who then tapped on the shoulder and introduced himself. So he found an empty room in the back of the arena where Dana sat with Lesnar and his lawyers. Think you can do this, Brock? What makes you think you can be the best in the UFC with the best fighter in the world? There are no easy fights in UFC. I don't want easy fights. I want to be in the UFC. I want to compete at that level. His hands are so big that the regular gloves didn't fit. Called his fist canned hams. Once the bout commenced, he exploded like a caged animal almost immediately. Took Frank Mir down and pummeled the day's fighter. It looked like a bully having his way on the playground with a seemingly defenseless kid. Goodness. And to be deducted the point, just striking the back of his head. The bout continued on Mir to time to come to his senses, but then Brock made a fatal rookie mistake by finding himself caught in a knee bar submission. The UCD was exciting, very short-lived. Nevertheless, the UC official were ecstatic as it seemed. It wouldn't be a flash in the pan after all. We had one solid pay-per-view riding on his broad shoulders. As Wintermeat was wrong about Lesnar, and we've kind of booked Shooter the toughest men in wrestling. Guys came up to me So this guy's going to be scary in a couple of years. He needs time. I'll be honest. I don't think he could come in here with only one fight and compete on his level. He proved me wrong. He pointed with the result, but understood that success wouldn't elude him for long if he corrected small mistakes. Work on being a more relaxed and controlled fighter, polished up his game, get himself back in the gym to prepare his next fight. It's not 5 minutes to try to win. I really rushed that fight. I made a foolish mistake. Right. Doing big fights is choosing a more typical route where a fighter progressively proves himself against tough competition. Started at the top and wasn't about to switch to become a mid-carder. He was either going to become a champion and move on to other things. Same time, the Octagon, he brought in 7 times in Jiu-Jitsu champion Pete Medeiros to help him train. Let's see a different Lesnar second UFC fight. One of his advantages was that he had lots of footage on everyone. In contrast, his opponents had very little footage on him, so nobody knew his weaknesses. Brock dominated from the start and rocked Herring with a punch that sent him tumbling to the mat. Sure, the whole first round was more composed in his match and methodically began breaking down his opponent. So as much of the same. Goodness, his face looked puffy and deformed. But Dr. Vader, the fight should continue. It's going to be because he just wasn't going to quit. In his memoir, there's a statement, I don't think Heath took me seriously, in fact, rubbed me the wrong way. Me like I was a greenhorn, a WWE wrestler who didn't belong in the octagon with an experienced veteran like him. He acted as if it was beneath him to fight me, determined to make him eat his own words. Don't know what I suggested to Brock Lesnar, perhaps you'd learn to fight somewhere else if it wasn't played to learn to fight. But only his third ever MMA contest, Brock Lesnar took home a convincing one-sided win. The fight before the first decision was pretended to lasso the Texas crazy horse Heath Herring and acted as though he was riding him like a bucking bronco, as he found used to mutual respect. The fights didn't quite know what to think. Oh dear. Buckled under the pressure. Being done the buckling thanks to Lesnar's overhang, but Lesnar's more than ground and pound strategy. So this is him not really adapting to the social environment which he was in, but more taking from what he knew from WWE. Right, okay, see, we now come, but there's this famous saying in the UFC, people to notice the next opponent was supposed to be a French striker, Cheat Congo, but instead Lesnar would go all the way to the top and challenge for the UFC Heavyweight Championship. Right. Had tumultuous but short 4.5-year career in the UFC. 2 successful title defenses against Frank Mir and Shane Carmine. He'd lose 2 straight bouts against Cain Velasquez and Alistair Overeem. He also battled severe health issues, which is digestive tract. He needs emergency surgery. Goodness. He won after returning 5 years later, but usually overturned the win to get a no contest, revealing that Lesnar failed a pre-fight drug test. On June 28th, and the second one was for clomiphene and hydroxyclomiphene, an anti-estrogen agent. Interesting. He's fined $250,000. Why is he the most accomplished athlete? Try to think what else he could be. I think he is immensely talented. But looking beyond the talent, we see someone with definitely extrovert sensation valuing, introverted ethics valuing, and I think of the two as more of a stubbornness in the introverted ethics than in the extroverted sensation. there is a balancing between extrovert sensation and introvert sensation in terms of needing his recuperation, his rest, his time on the farm, that need to leave WWE because he found it actually is too grueling, too punishing. Yeah, and that sense of going into things because he feels that he'd regret his life if he didn't go and do that particular thing. There's a question for a makeshift octagon was happily accepted by UFC President Dana White. But knows while stepping in the octagon, that's why he ordered his own octagon to get acclimatized with the environment. He felt nervous while stepping in the octagon. So he ordered his own octagon to get acclimatized with the environment. Interesting. That sounds to me very introverted sensation. And sort of experience and acclimatize to it first. Part of it actually reminds me quite a bit of Kratos in God of War. It reminds me quite a lot of Kratos in God of War, actually. I think ESI. Yeah, Ilya, I think ESI. I'm not sure what else he could be. Yeah. Okay. I think we've going long enough now. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Yeah, this is longer than normal. Yeah. So looking forward to the next one. Thank you everyone for their super chats. Greatly appreciated. Claudia, Isaac, Pel Valkyrie, and thank you, Ilya, of course. So yeah, take care everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.